content. We can tease it if you want. We can tease it.
I don't even know what the story is.
I know, that's the fun part. Look at Jordan. So excited.
Hey there, everybody. Happy Cinco de Mayo, amigos. Welcome to the Tip-Off, the show that sets the stage for all the most important news, daily fantasy plays, and bets on tonight's 9-game NBA slate and 12-game MLB slate. We're going to have a fun show today. It's Cinco. Guy, Eric, is something funny?
Heidi ho, neighbor. Pleased to make your acquaintance. Oh, hello, amigos.
Was that a little much?
Hello, fellow amigos.
Oh, hello. I would love a tostados and a margarita, please.
And the best taco bowl is in Trump Tower, as Kayla always said. That's what
we are coming in hot today. Oh,
real hot.
Oh, man. Okay.
Chris Spags and Eric Lindquist are here, if you couldn't tell. I need a margarita, so drink.
We kept it together for an hour yesterday, so we can do it again. 40 minutes, we can be polite for 40 minutes. We can do that.
Yeah,
guys, it's good to have the crew back together. We get the money hat on Spags today.
We do. I'm coming from show to show here. I saw Eric last night, had guided him, I would say, to one of his best wins in the last week or so. So I feel pretty good about that. But I'm excited to be on the Tip-Off. Tip-Off, we like to have fun here. We get to make jokes that I sometimes can't find ways to squeeze into other shows. So happy to be here. And I like the outfit, Kayla. I'll say that. I like the bright yellow. I feel like it really highlights, I don't know, something.
Yeah, you can't talk XFIP and then jump into a Disney song the way that you can with me. So
no,
I'm here. I break barriers is really what it comes down to. I help you give all that you can to the Awesemo community, all of our friends there in YouTube chat. And yeah, it's a fun time. This is a fun hour leading in. It's not nearly as stressful as what the last 15 minutes before lock will be today for NBA. I can tell you that much.
We actually have breaking news on the show today. A little story time with Eric Spags. You said you like having fun. All good and fun, making fun of others. Well, buckle up. Eric, the floor is yours. Tell us your story. Breaking news here on the Tip-Off. Listen up, chat.
I'm happy. So I had a nice night yesterday. So just had a short of 3K. So I'm a happy customer. So I feel like today is the day that I can come clean about something that happened in my life. So a couple months back, somebody decided to drop into the YouTube chat and just randomly say something about micro-threading. And I was like, what is that? That is the weirdest thing ever. And it was some kind of like an eyebrow treatment thing, something I had never seen or whatever else. And so this guy ends up DMing me on Twitter. And he's like, hey, like if you're trying to, like, he was actually being authentic. He was like, would you like to take care of your eyebrows? This is what I do for it and whatever else. And he's an actor. I'm an actor. He plays DFS. I play DFS. I guess that's where he felt like it was okay to DM me about this. I also learned maybe don't have your DMs open. But anyway, so I get this Gillette razor thing. And there are like 3 different like blade settings or whatever. And, you know, it's Friday. I'm getting ready to go out and go see some of my friends and do whatever else like 2 weeks ago it would have been. And I slipped up with the razor. And if there's a reason that you think I've been wearing glasses for the last week and a half, you are correct. Because I cut off part of my eyebrow directly right there on the top. And for the last week and a half, I've been wearing glasses and nobody said anything. It was chalk kit right from the get-go. But nobody has said a darn thing about it since because they were like, oh, well, now he's wearing glasses or whatever. And I'm like, oh, I need to cover my sleep or whatever else. Just flat out lying because I jacked up my eyebrow.
Wow.
Eric, don't lie. You want to be LaMelo Ball. Like,
yeah, that's a look people go for. So like, I don't think you're that far off. It's not probably a look people who look like you go for that much, but I would say and now there is a difference too. I know Kayla knows this. I know this because my girlfriend talks about it, but threading is not the same thing as microblading. Microblading is like getting a tattoo of your eyebrows on your face forever. Yes. Whereas threading is like what you like use a thread to yank them out and shorten them or whatever, I think is.
Threading is
he said to go to a barber and do that. So he had said, go to a barber and do that. And I was like, I'm not going to go to a barber like with like the whole thing or whatever. But I was like, I'll maintain it and try it. Bad idea. Bad idea. But I feel good about it.
I have a gadget that I like clean up my eyebrows with. It doesn't have a razor. I don't know what you're using.
It's like the Gillette, like there's a thing you could do as like a beard trim or whatever, but there's like different tiny settings for it. So he was just like, yeah, you can just clean it up that way. I was like, this is a very intricate thing to be going back and forth with, but that is the reason that the glasses have been on for a while. And it's because I had a decent enough night yesterday. I felt, you know what? I'll come clean today. It's about time. I had to get it off my chest and give you all material for the next however many weeks.
You can see the chat too saying that that's the thing gangbangers do. Bino in the chat saying 3 cuts in your eyebrow, China wild out. So that's so, look, I think you're speaking to the demographics that Eric knows and holds in great esteem in his heart. So I'm glad I think Eric's basically been getting jumped in on the Awesemo channel for months. So I guess you're finally
hate it or love it. The underdog's on top.
Of all people for this to happen to. It's just so good. Oh my gosh. I actually knew the story before Spags got in the chat today. So we wanted to see your reaction most of all.
No, that's
Jordan Klein is so embarrassed for me.
I'm glad we've cultivated this kind of show where Eric feels like it's a safe place or is willing to even offer that up as content to the show. And I'm appreciative of it. That's the kind of environment I'm glad that Kayla and us have been able to create here.
I had a pinky promise not to say anything. And then he was like, you know what? I'm feeling good after that win. I'll talk about it. I was like, please do. It's great content. Yeah. And with that, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for countless hours of content on the NBA, MLB, NHL, PGA, MMA, NASCAR, and every other sport that's in season. We're not letting you live that down, by the way, Eric. So
I know.
Don't think you're getting off clean. Let's talk about our sponsor, No House Advantage, who is taking a different spin on daily fantasy sports by offering player prop contests across the NBA, MLB, NFL, and PGA for cash prizes. This exclusively peer-to-peer fantasy sports platform levels the playing field and makes it easier for you to win real cash compared with your traditional DFS sites. With over 500 player props offerings, No House Advantage is the largest provider of player props in the industry, and the best part is that for tonight only, you will receive a $50 first match deposit bonus. Normally it's $20, tonight it's $50, folks. With promo code Awesemo, so you can enter NHA's $5,000 to first contest tonight. Be your friends, not the house. Download the App Store and win big with player props today. Heading into bad beats, besides Eric's eyebrows. Yesterday was a night with extreme chalk all over the place. Delon Wright and nearly every stud went for massive games, while Marvin Bagley and Bismack Biyombo crushed the hopes and dreams of many. How did it fare on the crazy 7 gamer for you guys last night? Spags, let's start with you.
I mean, not as good as it went for Eric. We were DMing yesterday on Slack talking about his day because we were on not on most of the same plays, but it discussed all of our plays at great length on the Live Before Lock show. And both, I think, we're having good nights. My issue for me is I did get killed by Marvin Bagley. He was very much a believer in him yesterday. He shot, I think, 5 for 15, which sucks. That's not usually what he does. He's normally a guy that has a pretty good field goal percentage. So that kept me from really getting to the upper echelon where a top 60 finish in the big DK tournament was all I could get. But I feel like any day the value goes off, it's a more fun slate. I always enjoy those a lot more, especially when you're getting most of them right. And Delon Wright was somebody I mentioned on the shows that I was doing, was a guy I was very bullish on. The field ended up being light on him somehow. So happy with that result. Happy to go back there again today. And I enjoy NBA trash season. To me is the most fun DFS and betting you can have. So I'm happy to be there every night.
You say that now, and now the Houston Rockets are coming up. You're right off the bat.
Love it all.
Oh, I do love carnage. I love all of the craziness. I think it really helps. Yesterday ended up being a nice night. Ended up winning the mini max. Ended up finishing 10th in the big tournament over on Fanduel. So I was very happy with those results. But being able to talk with you, I think one of the nice things about this platform and being here is that we get ideas from you guys as well. I was going back and forth about like lower owned plays with somebody in a Slack chat as well. And Tim Hardaway Jr. came up, and that ended up being a differentiating piece in a lot of my lineups. Almost took down some other tournaments too, but ended up having a really nice night. And now we just continue forth.
Not to keep bringing it up, but to keep bringing it up, Eric, I think my favorite part about this entire story is that a viewer watching the show went to go DM you about your eyebrows. Like, that's so good.
Well, I thought they were being mean in the chat at first, and then a day later they just popped up. I'm like, okay, they were actually being serious, that they're like, I can help you with this. Like, it was a thing. They're like, you have a problem and I have a solution. It's like, all right, well, here we are. Oh, it's you can't make this kind of stuff up. It's so dumb.
Our viewers are looking out. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much. If Over Under sends it to me, just pass. Just hard pass on any of the cosmetics.
All right. Now for our NBA news, the Houston Rockets' Jae'Sean Tate is now listed as out due to health and safety protocols, while Christian Wood is now officially doubtful. Spags, which is the short-handed Rockets, should we be prioritizing against a stout Sixers defense unit tonight? And what possible betting ramifications are there should Wood sit? I promise I have not had margaritas yet today.
That's, it's just classic Eric wordsmithing on the run sheet, I would say. But should Wood sit, I would say, and it does seem like Wood is sitting. I think obviously the big beneficiary from Tate being out is going to be KJ Martin Jr., Kenny Martin Jr., depending upon what your data is looking at. A guy who's Awesemo was projected today for 37 minutes. He's 3,900 on DK, so not quite a minimum salary play. Like a Caleb Martin yesterday was a guy I had no issue getting to a ton of, mentioned on the Live Before Lock show. On this show today, I feel like KJ Martin, it's early, obviously. Something else could open up and change this, but to me, I'll be heavily exposed to KJ Martin today. Hopefully not literally. I don't know how that would happen, but I will very much appreciate having him in my lineups. He's a play that I don't see how he doesn't get a ton of minutes. He's been a very good rebounder. He's a guy who has to probably play backup 5 because the Rockets are so shorthanded right now. I think they have 8 guys active today, maybe 9, but I think it's 8. And they don't have any big men. They don't have DJ Wilson in the lineup. He's still out for health protocols. Christian Wood being out means you're going to see a lot of Kelly Olynyk run. So KJ Martin benefits from that. But Kelly Olynyk's the guy that I think is going to get undervalued today. He has been a monster in Houston. I was going through the rates and actually had to mark him down a little bit. But he's had a 26% usage rate and a 33% assist rate in court time without John Wall and without Christian Wood on the floor. Having Kevin Porter Jr. out there is certainly going to take away some of that upside, but still a spot where I'm having Olynyk projected for 25% usage, 25% assist rate. That's a pretty big number. So to me, Kevin Porter Jr., Kelly Olynyk Jr., and Kelly Olynyk and KJ Martin Jr. Too many juniors in here, but Kelly Olynyk for the day, an honorary junior, because play them all. I think play those 3 heavy and you'll probably be happy with the results.
Today, Junior. It's fine. That's another movie quote for everybody involved. But anyway, you are dead on. We are off today. This is fantastic.
Maybe I'm actually counting.
Oh, I'm on. Yeah, either way. There's 7, maybe 8, I think is what I'm looking at here. DJ Augustine is questionable. Otherwise, it's just 7 guys. I'm assuming he gets ruled in so this game can actually go. Otherwise, it's a flat out forfeit, which would be a strange thing to see. That would be the pontification of late season NBA DFS for sure. But I wouldn't mind having this game on the board because I think there is a very interesting strategy in terms of how you build your lineup. So Avery Bradley's the one piece we didn't bring up from there. He's 3K. 3K goes a long way on this slate. I was looking earlier last night and I thought Shaq Harrison had a shot at being like a 3K guy to maybe take some shots on. I don't think you need to be going that direction, but like Avery Bradley, I know that the minutes are questionable a lot of the time, but he would be looking at getting upwards of 28 minutes here in this spot. Only a 0.6 fantasy point per minute producer, but again, he's 3K. And in the context of the slate where you have a super chalky right, you have other point guards like Hampton and Campazzo, guys we'll talk about a little bit later here. Avery Bradley's an interesting piece at 3K to get a gauge on because we've seen some hot shooting spurts from him in the past. He would be locked into some minutes there, and 28 minutes he could run into some stocks as well. So I think he becomes an interesting piece as well. But as you said, Kelly Olynyk, put him into the bucket of amazing center plays on the slate. We have 3 amazing spend ups. We have Robert Williams there in the mid range, Jonas Valanciunas, Nurkic, so many different places to go at center. And Kelly Olynyk could just be a really, really undervalued part of that, partially because of the -14 spread. But he's been playing late into fourth quarters in some of these blowouts. So some of that blowout concern is mitigated.
The field is going right back to the Kings this evening as Delon Wright and Marvin Bagley are projected to be the highest owned plays on Draftkings for the 2nd consecutive night. Eric, are you going back to the well on them too?
I think you have to. I mean, they just stand out as such phenomenal plays. And I know Marvin Bagley ended up burning, half the universe yesterday. I was actually on him heavy too. I was pretty much, I didn't know what the field was going to come in at. It was looking around 65%. That's kind of what it ended up being. And I was right around maybe a little bit below that number. But 54-100, there's really, if Metu ends up in, yeah, you can be lighter, but then he becomes an incredible tournament play and probably a little bit undervalued for his kind of upside that he brings to the table. And then Delon Wright, there's really nothing that you can possibly say to go against him today. He's just kind of for me, a de facto lock-in piece. Don't really think twice about it. I was happy to see him get over that 7.5 assist prop just barely got up to 8 because I was invested in that from 6.5 up to 7.5 throughout the day yesterday. I think going back to that in the prop market again looks really, really nice. The assist rate takes a meaningful jump, 2 assists away from a triple double, 8 stocks. We're not kind of relying on that necessarily on FanDuel, but he's just so cheap. He's going to play high 30s minutes. There's nobody else in that backcourt that you really are going to be looking at getting any meaningful run besides Buddy Hield and Terrence Davis. So fire him up.
Yeah, you're going to see guys like we talked about him yesterday, but Kyle Guy getting some run. Jamius Ramsey going to probably get a little bit of run. But for the most part, it is going to be DeLon Wright's backcourt. And yesterday, this is something where I was going through the lineup study on Fantasy Cruncher real fast to see just how some of the top players handled it yesterday. Because I wouldn't say tilted by my buddy Hield, my Marvin Bagley exposure, but I just felt like it was a little bit lofty. And a lot of the best players in DFS, guys who actually won that tournament yesterday on DK, had 90 to 95% Bagley. So, that's one place that I think the best minds are going to go to. I think you can go a little bit less heavy today, but getting above the field on Bagley, I think is worthwhile because it wouldn't shock me if his ownership comes down a little bit more just because of people being chafed by what he did yesterday. But DeLon Wright today, I think it wouldn't shock me to see him be in 95% of the top players lineups again because he's going to open up a lot of things. I don't know that he's going to have the same 55 fantasy point ceiling, but you have to think about it. He's replacing De'Aaron Fox and replacing Tyrese Halliburton and not the same player, but he's getting basically all of their run and a lot of their production rolled up right into him like Mega Man. And I think that's something that you have to really admire in a spot against Indiana. That's a team that plays fast, gigantic total in this game as well, 239.5 combined total. Everything looks great here. So I think playing a lot of right and really trying to rely on Bagley getting back to form, I think today is an important part where you get to Buddy Hield, but he's so expensive now. I think taking Bagley and hoping that he siphons away some Buddy Hield production would be the best way to approach it.
The Pacers' Malcolm Brogdon and Edmund Sumner are questionable, which would open up more usage for Domantas Sabonis and more minutes for TJ McConnell and O'Shea Brissett. Spags, if both sit tonight, which Pacers will you be prioritizing?
I think Sabonis has to be a priority if Brogdon's out again, and LeVert too, very much in the mix, but I do think the ceiling and also honestly the floor of Sabonis is there a bit more in a way that I trust in LeVert, where it wouldn't shock me to see LeVert be less productive on a day where, Dougie McBucket starts hitting his shots a little bit more, or you see, a TJ McConnell start getting more run and be a little more valuable in that court time. There are just some ways that LeVert can get weird where if you do get Sabonis out there with no Brogdon, I think that's a clear pathway for him to have the same triple-double upside we've seen in spades in the last few games. And it's a great spot against Sacramento, a team we've talked about all year, just has nothing. Now they have even less than they normally have. So I think if you do get these guys out, playing Sabonis to me would be a high priority play.
What is up with this line too? 6.5 hasn't moved, hasn't seen a lot of action, since open. It hasn't changed whatsoever. And Brogdon is a gigantic piece. I'm really thinking about firing, not to look ahead. I don't think we'll have time for the Pirate Parlay. I know you're all so disappointed in that, but putting the Sacramento Kings together and packaging them with the 76ers, -14 is a gigantic number, but I think they're just going to absolutely mow down the Rockets. I know they played one closer game here than they should have the other night where they were kind of looking at resting them against San Antonio that had Podol and DeRozan sitting. I really think 76ers come out and just obliterate them today. I think packaging those two together in a parlay looks really, really nice. I just can't believe that there isn't any movement as I'm going through. There's a couple spots that I go to check to see where sharp money's coming in on, see some of those line movements, but get over to OddsShopper and definitely take a look at where those numbers are. Because if you're getting a 6.5 here, and if that isn't going to change based on the Brogdon news, if he gets ruled out, I really want to be on that king side. Regardless, I think even with Brogdon in, I'd still probably be there. Kings have been playing pretty darn well. Hield, as much as I don't like him as a basketball player, playing a little bit over his head right now, and maybe I'll ride a little bit of that in DFS, but specifically in the betting markets, I really like packaging those two teams together. So if you're looking to add to your portfolio of investment tonight, Kings 6.5, getting those 6.5 points, 76ers -14.
The Denver Nuggets backcourt is severely shorthanded, and Facundo Campazzo and Austin Rivers are garnering a bunch of ownership as a result. Eric, does either one feel like a priority for you on the slate? That really helps me. Thank you for doing that.
I know. Well, it means no worries. It's really kind of what it is. And you did a lovely job there. This is the content that they are here for, is us singing. I know that to be true. And me cutting off half my eyebrow. But I love getting to other pieces in that same range that aren't Facundo Campazzo today. Now, He has a 2.6 steal average per game. That's a ridiculous number. It's not sustainable. I refuse to believe that he is John Stockton reincarnated in Denver. And I just am going to be completely against him there. Assist rate's only sitting around 20%, which is good by all means, but that's basically what you need out of him. You need steals and you need a bunch of assists, because he's not getting there with the 12% usage, which he's basically had as a stagnant number throughout the entire season. I know he's going to see a boatload of minutes. He's no longer free specifically over on Fanduel, which is kind of where you really want to play him, where those steals are worth 3. Looking over at DraftKings, yeah, he's 4,600, but there's a pivot there. And I think we'll get to that a little bit later, that I'm going to be prioritizing much more heavily today. Somebody that I think has a path to higher usage, more upside on this kind of a slate where it is going to be stars and scrubsy. I just don't know if Campazzo has enough to get there today.
Yeah, I think Campazzo would appeal to me more than Austin Rivers. And I was getting a good amount of Austin Rivers in crunches before the show. And a way that honestly concerns me, because he played 30 minutes the other day and had a 7% usage rate and just didn't do a whole lot, got there just kind of through sheer force of those minutes. But he's been on the year a 0.65 fantasy point per minute guy. I know people are going to say like, oh, it's a revenge game against the Knicks. The Knicks didn't use him that well, or didn't use him the way that he would have liked, whatever that case may be. I just don't know that I have the faith in Austin Rivers actually producing enough to get there. So he's somebody I think I'm okay getting to right now. I will be desperately looking for any other value to pop up and knock me off of Austin Rivers. But according to the boom bust tool right now, it does seem like Austin Rivers has a 20% chance of booming, only a 9% chance of landing in the optimal. But I do think you should probably get that 10% ish for him. Similar numbers for Campazzo. So I think, maybe a little bit better play according to the boom bust tool, or actually, no, it looks like a slightly worse play according to the boom bust tool next to the price tag. So neither guy a priority to me. And in fact, I would actively like to find ways to move away from them and just take the Jokic or Michael Porter Jr.'s instead.
Yeah, to piggyback, one thing to add there, Austin Rivers, 193 minutes so far in a Nuggets uniform, 0.57 DraftKings points per minute. That's not going to be something that I want to be prioritizing on a stars and scrub slate. 11.2% usage. The only guy a little bit better than him is Campazzo there, 12.6%. Shaq Harrison down there at 11%. So what I was thinking about last night with Shaq Harrison is definitely probably off the table, even though he probably gets some of that backup run at the 2 and 3 with PJ Dozier out of there.
Okay, that'll do it for our NBA news. Important question. Eric, should your new name be Eyebrow Eric?
I mean, that's kind of like really on the nose, right? We can't be like that. Like Chalk Ken at least has like a roundabout way of being funny, but I don't know. Eyebrow Eric.
We can call you Slash or something. Or
Slash. That's edgy.
Slash Lindquist. What up?
I'll take it. Pretty cool name. I don't hate it. You might have booked more acting gigs, I think, if you were there like Slash Lindquist.
You just call me out as being an untalented hack. I think that's what that was.
It's shorter than Eyebrow Razor user error.
Did you come up with that, or is that in chat?
No, I just came up with that. I'm witty, Eric.
Oh, okay.
Women are funny, Eric. Get over it.
That's what it was. Yes. Call me out. That's exactly what I was thinking, even though, oh man. Can we go to the next segment, please? Rita?
We sure can. Let's head into our one-on-one. And these battles between stars, which player would you rather have in NBA DFS or prop bets tonight? We've got Russell Westbrook. For as much hate as you all throw on him, we sure have been talking about him a lot lately. He continues to Russell Westbrook, while Giannis still carries the high fantasy points per minute rate in the league. If forced to pick only one tonight, who are you prioritizing, Westy or the Greek freak Eric?
Westbrook. I mean, I'm not talking crap about Westbrook. I'm over the field. 11K is too cheap. And I have stood next to that statement for a long time here. It continues to be true. We haven't seen somebody with this level of consistency put up triple doubles. And on a site like DraftKings specifically, where that is so valuable, where turnovers are only worth -0.5 as opposed to on Fanduel, where they're worth -1. I think on Fanduel is actually where I do have more of the questions on whether or not I want to be completely over the field. Right now, coming in low 20s ownership, I think that's probably too low for his upside. So I'm going to be going there again. But God, on DraftKings, I just have no idea how I don't have him in like at least half my lineups every single night, no matter what, pending nothing. Like I just will find a way to do it because he's a 12-5 player right now. With the things that he's doing, he has a floor of about 50. We've seen 1 or 2 bad games in the last 20 for him, and then an upside of 80. And I know from a math perspective, you try to figure out exactly what's his chance of booming and what's his chance of busting in accordance to what that 11K is worth. but he is such locked in raw points that has to be valued more than it is for just about any player that we've seen since maybe James Harden when Russell Westbrook was out 2 years ago. So I'm going to continue to be over top of the field. It hasn't really, well, I mean, it did fail me one time, but you can't look at that and not think that his string of production isn't still extremely valuable. So I am way over top on him. I feel really good about that. And then Giannis, there's really nothing I can poke him, but he's on a back-to-back 1.71 DraftKings points per minute. There's no question that he makes an amazing feature on this slate. There are more guards that I think I want to play than power forwards, but it is Russ Westbrook. He's just on such a tear.
It's been hard to project Russ Westbrook correctly, which is why I think, it's not, I think, talking smack about Russ Westbrook necessarily as much as it is trying to figure out like how to make it work for tournaments for you and the way that's going to make sense. And I think still not locking in Russell Westbrook is the move overall, where I think at certain points, the logic for people is going to be, play him 100%. And there are going to be days where he has a game like he had against Cleveland, even 2 games he had against Milwaukee, where he had an 80 fantasy point game. The next game out had a 50 fantasy point game against Milwaukee. If you get a 50 fantasy point Russell Westbrook day, it's not going to keep you from profiting, but it's definitely going to keep you, or at least make it very difficult to win a GPP. And that's sort of where I'm viewing it, is that I probably will be getting between 25 and 50% Westbrook. I'm not sure how it's going to look based on the crunches I've ran so far, because it's been pretty fungible, but I do think Westbrook is the safer play. And I think one thing to point out too with Giannis is that the Nets were defending him in a very particular way, where you saw him hit 4 3-pointers in both those games. That's because they were just letting him shoot from 3. They were basically giving him a clear runway to get to the mid range and shoot from deep. And then he was sort of taking advantage of that, as well as he can, I guess. It's not going to happen for most teams. That was a strategic move they played that clearly didn't stop Giannis in any way, and in fact made him more effective. I think today, honestly, wouldn't shock me to see Giannis get ruled out. So that's got to be a bit of a downgrade too. We haven't had the Milwaukee injury report come out yet, and we know how they like to screw things around like that. But I think it's got to be, for all those reasons, it has to be Westbrook as a priority, but Giannis still in play. It's just, I think Westbrook is going to be the better configuration overall.
I play Westbrook every day because that's the kind of loyal I am.
Okay.
All right.
It's going well for you. We'll say that.
RJ Hampton and Facundo Campazzo are identically priced, identically owned, and identically projected across the board tonight. Which one are you leaning towards in your builds, Hampton or Campazzo Spags?
It's RJ Hampton by a pretty wide margin. Orlando sort of gave me the signifier last game out for them that obviously they've been tanking. They've sat a lot of guys. They've been, going through all the injury, whatever machinations that are going on there, resting guys, all of that. But one thing that was important to me to see firsthand last game out was that Gary Harris is playing very well. I had some Gary Harris, only to watch Gary Harris get yanked because he hit a 3-pointer in the first half. Like, he was playing well, and they're like, yeah, get this guy out of here. He's playing too well. Then the second half, same thing. He's playing well again. They give him, I think, 4 minutes. They gave him even less run, or 5 minutes. And that was basically it for him. He didn't play any other run, ended up playing less than 12 minutes in that game. I think that's what they're going to here, is they want to give RJ Hampton the chance to get out there. Watching the ownership is important though, because RJ Hampton, it would not shock me to see him get very chalky, because he's had over 40 fantasy points the last 2 games, right now projected for 18% ownership from Awesemo. So that's one I think you have to watch out for, is that RJ Hampton could end up being a play that, on the year, he's just been a 0.82 fantasy point per minute guy, or as part of Orlando so far. People are treating him like he's a superstar, and maybe he is that superstar, but I do think if that ownership gets high, it's probably a points move away.
35 minutes for RJ Hampton. If you're going to give me 30 minutes of him, he's more valuable than 40 of Campazzo. It becomes just a question of, like, RJ Hampton, 0.8 fantasy points per minute on the year. Part of that comes from Denver, where he was like the 12th option, and they basically casted him away, even though I feel like they would do just about anything to have him back at the moment. I'm pretty sure with the litany of injuries they have to their backcourt. But I'm looking at Campazzo, and I just don't see a lot that I really want to get to on this slate. I get the play. I understand it, like why people are going there in a meaningful way. But RJ Hampton, we've seen now back-to-back games of a ceiling with just 22 and 18% usage, 10 assists and 5 assists. He can get there in a number of ways. Rebounding the ball at a high clip, back-to-back 7 rebound games. As his opportunity as his minutes have gone up, I think we're going to see a really, really good basketball player alongside him. And him and Cole Anthony are a pretty decent little backcourt. Like Orlando, they're terrible, and they don't have a lot going for them in terms of like draft equity, but I feel pretty good about the backcourt that they've assembled. If they can get a couple free agents now that they shipped out Vooch, if they can find a way to get a front court, that could be a team to be looking at in the next couple of years that, can be somewhat competitive, something like with the Hawks, where they picked up Danilo Gallinari and Bogdanovich and have become somewhat relevant here. But I really don't know how you wouldn't want to prioritize RJ Hampton with the amount of upside we've seen out of him recently at the exact same ownership and getting projected about the same, but that doesn't necessarily account for the ceiling. And the boom bust tool shows a little bit higher bust percentage for Campazzo, a little bit lower boom score for him. So definitely the Hampton route for me.
All right. There are no rules for segments here on the tip-off, so let's get weird. Eric, thanks to you. I think we're already there. And make it a one-on-one-on-one. Joel Embiid, Karl Anthony Towns, and Nikola Jokic are three spin-up centers with massive ceilings on tonight's slate. Which is your favorite amongst this trio of studs? Embiid, Towns, or Jokic? Eric.
So we got a lot to get to here in the next 7 minutes. So I'll get flying here. I think it's Jokic. So it's the Knicks, and I get that. But we're taking now PJ Dozier. That's another dude off the floor. His assist rate with those guys off is around 38% here on the season, which is just a laughably high number for a center in this situation. I think that there's massive triple-double upside for him here. If we're talking about just who like Joel Embiid, I have obvious blowout risk. And I very rarely ever say that. So it's very meaningful and true today to say that. Plus, he's only been playing low 30s minutes. Dwight Howard's been playing really well. Karl Anthony Towns, yeah, he's been getting up to high 30s minutes here of late again, got up to 37 minutes, showed a little bit of an upside there again, but I hope Minnesota's not trying to win games. And so maybe those minutes come down a little bit here as we get towards the end of the season, but Nikola Jokic, they need to keep winning games. He feels like the secure guy in this spot. I know it's a Knicks team that is tough to target, but Taj Gibson's very different than having Mitchell Robinson out there. Very different than if you get Nerlens Noel out of there as well. So give me Nikola Jokic.
Yeah, I would take Jokic too here. I really don't have an issue with Embiid or Towns, but Jokic has been just a very productive player in court time without Jamal Murray and without Will Barton. And I think, the rates for him do get a little weird when you start looking at the smaller sample size ones, where that rate that Eric mentioned, is important to look at because he actually has a little bit less assists than his season-long average in court time without Murray, where he's at about 44% assist rate in that court time. And maybe he gets a little bit less effective just because you're getting less and less guys in the mix who are actual bodies. And I think that's not the best for him. And it is a down pace spot. But besides all that, I just think Jokic, like you look at his team compared to these other guys, everything flows through Jokic, whereas a lot flows through Towns, a lot flows through Embiid, but you still have Ben Simmons there kind of lurking to one day do more. He's been very quiet lately. Tobias Harris, the same thing. In the other spot for Jokic, you just really have Michael Porter Jr. competing for touches. For Towns, you still have Anthony Edwards. You still have D'Angelo Russell getting shots up. Rubio still gobbling up some possessions. So to me, that's really the main thing is that Denver's continuing to get more and more shorthanded. They keep winning though. It's all on Jokic's back. And it's worth pointing out too, if you get Nerlens Noel out, you're getting Jokic against Taj Gibson, who has fought admirably last game out against Memphis, but against Jokic, he is going to have absolutely no say about what happens on that court. I think that only makes Jokic look better despite the low pace.
Y'all, I had no idea we were out at 140 today. The run sheet said 455. I'm just the host. I don't know these things.
How about this?
All right.
How about this? I'm going to help you. Biggest bat. So we have biggest bat and biggest
Nelson
arm.
Cruz.
It's the same guy. Shohei Ohtani. Can we just figure out a way to be able to involve him? In DFS where we can play him a bunch. I don't understand. DraftKings, Fanduel, if you're listening, figure out your Shohei Ohtani situation because he's the most fun player in baseball, two-way player, getting over 7.5 strikeouts today. Fire him up. High K rate, been terrible, absolutely terrible in terms of hard contact, but I don't really care. We're looking at strikeouts and then plus 330 to hit a home run. Sign me up.
So I would say for biggest bat, I would go in a different direction for both. I like Shohei Ohtani, but I'm not as bullish on his prospects overall just because I think he's going to level out a little bit more and become slightly less bad at giving up hard contact and slightly less good at getting strikeouts would be my two guesses. So for the biggest bat, I think you have to go Nelson Cruz. This is actually a bet that I would like to have legal gambling in California for a variety of reasons, but one like this to me, he should not be in the middle of this pack here. This man has a 422 ISO against left-handed pitching since 2019. He is facing a pitcher who wasn't even good in Korean baseball, who somehow found his way to Major League Baseball. No disrespect to Hyung Jong Yang, whose name I have not said nearly long enough. Also, Laffy says go long, Kayla, so keep that in mind.
Oh, okay. Good to know. Thanks, Laffy.
So in this spot, Nelson Cruz, I think is just a power monster overall, where I think it's going to be bad for Hyung Jong Yang overall. And I think his 90-mile-per-hour fastball is not going to be enough to get there. So I'm glad we had more time to get there. Looks like we can go until the 50-minute mark on this show, and I can spend the next 13 minutes talking about Nelson Cruz, a man who is undoubtedly snorting PEDs left and right to do what he's doing, but boy, is he a monster.
My team. Like, you know how this goes. Like Nelson Cruz, we can talk about him. Byron Buxton. Let's talk about Kirby Puckett and Harmon Killebrew while we're at it. Let's go.
Talk about
let's
Prince.
play the
Why
hits.
not?
Let's play the hits. Kent Herbeck, if we want to get really strange. I'm here for it.
Now that Eric took out a massive chunk of our show.
I took a massive chunk out of our show right here. Yeah.
I just want to throw in biggest arm too, because
Yes.
I've had to prep MLB all day and do two shows about it. So goddamn, I'm going to talk a little more about it. Shane Bieber.
Go.
Shane
Drama
Bieber
queen.
Is a monster of a pitcher, a 40% K rate for him. And the thing with baseball is something that obviously as a content provider, I'm a little more aware, or a host, whatever. I don't know what phrasing we're using at this point for our jobs, but like with Shane Bieber, there's nothing you could point to and go like, this guy's bad at something. Like Darvish has gotten a little bit worse in his swinging strike rate, a little bit worse on his chase rate. His strikeout rate's down a little bit more. Like there are things with Darvish you could point to and go like, this guy maybe has some issues to come. Bieber is getting better at everything here. His swinging strike rate's up, his chase rate's up, and the strikeouts haven't even been there as much as they could be. And that's at a 40% K rate. This guy's basically, a little bit behind DeGrom in terms of being an elite pitching arm, but he is a guy that I would take the over on any of his props right now, as long as it wasn't honestly over 12, I think would be the line for me. But 9.5, I think Bieber is just undervalued there. So take him and play him a lot in DFS today over the other guys.
Good stuff. Now let's head back to the NBA for No House Advantages prop or not. Here are some of No House Advantages props of the day for key players. So guys, do you like the over or under on them, and how many points would you assign? First up, we've got Michael Porter Jr., 12.5 points plus assists. Eric.
Yeah, this is deja vu, because we kind of have the exact same numbers for these next two players as what we had on Monday, I believe. Michael Porter Jr., just such a smash. This number is just kind of a misclick. It's like when you were playing MTTs, like when you were playing Poker Stars back in the day, and you made a misclick and you bet, 15 big blinds or something on accident, and that's what happened. They clicked the opposite. They clicked like the down button on 12.5. I mean, Michael Porter Jr. should be able to double this in points tonight. I know that it's a difficult matchup against the Knicks, but Michael Porter Jr. is going to be out there chucking. That's his job, especially now. Look at that entire backcourt. I mean, they're just decimated. It's going to be Jokic. It's going to be Michael Porter Jr. Those two are just going to play meaningful minutes. 12.5 is just a misclick.
Yeah, I have Michael Porter Jr. projected for 24.3 real life points today. So he's basically at double this prop just for his points, not even including whatever nominal amount of assists that he'll add, whatever nominal and comical amount of assists that Michael Porter Jr. will try to add to the equation. But it's one of those things for No House Advantage where we do talk about these on the show a lot, because we want you guys to play over there. And this should be your 10-pointer. Like yesterday, Delon Wright's assist number was your 10-pointer. Maybe today that would be a little bit less valuable. But this Porter Jr. number, I think it's them putting in these props just to see who's paying attention and to give the people who are playing there every day a little bit of an advantage. So if they're going to keep Porter Jr. where he is, he shouldn't be at this prop level. And No House Advantage is doing you a favor by letting you take that as a 10-pointer. So take that and build around it tonight.
Kevin Huerter, 22.5 points plus rebounds plus assists. Spags.
I presume this is the under again on this one. This is another prop that is not reflecting the fact that the Hawks now have a lot of their guys back, and maybe one of them ends up being rolled out like a Bogdanovich or whatever. That can happen. But even with that, it's still just too high of a line for Kevin Huerter. It looks like a 99% chance of Awesemo hitting the under. So maybe put this in your 10-pointer too, but then Michael Porter Jr. one and this one should be your 10 and 9 pointers on No House Advantage. No questions asked.
Yeah, so similar to Tim Hardaway Jr. yesterday, I've been trying to target a couple of like shooting dependent mid-range guys to try to be overweight on, even like 8-10% on certain slates. Yesterday, that was Tim Hardaway Jr. and ended up working out. I was going through this Atlanta team trying to figure out if I wanted to maybe take some shots on somebody like Lou Williams. He's not getting any minutes whatsoever, like teens minutes. I thought maybe, go into Bogdanovich. Well, he's 7,300. That's not really something that I want to be doing. Kevin Huerter, I was like 5,200 over on DraftKings. That would be interesting. Only played 20 minutes last game. As you said, starting to get healthy. The big thing that's going on with him is he's got a sprained left shoulder that he's continuing to play through, and he has just been bad. He has been ineffective. 6 points, 4 points his last two, really playing lower and lower minutes. He's not himself. He doesn't look remotely good out there right now. I watched maybe like 10 minutes of that game, and it was very uninteresting. Barely even noticed that Kevin Huerter was out there. So definitely an under here. NHA, another great line to be taking advantage of. These are your two highest confidence slots. No questions asked for me.
And lastly, we have Justin Holiday, 13.5 points plus rebounds plus assists. Eric.
So this is very, very interesting because I think that this is very dependent. The under is looking fantastic right now. I think that's under the presumption that Brogdon is going to be out. That Brogdon is going to be in. If Brogdon ends up out, this becomes somewhere where Justin Holiday and Aaron Holiday, both of them have kind of been playing a little bit of an increase in minutes. I mean, Doug McDermott was seeing the bulk of them here, but 35 minutes for Justin Holiday. I know that it looks really, really good to take the under here. I think that that's very much expressed in Awesemo's projections there. But if you get Malcolm Brogdon in, something tells me that this might not be a spot that you want to be going to. I know Edmund Sumner probably has more to do with Justin Holiday's minutes directly, but just in terms of the usage and the opportunity that exists, getting somebody like Brogdon out there is so meaningful where I think that becomes an easy under for Justin Holiday the way it looks like now. But if the event that you don't have Malcolm Brogdon in there, I would probably lean away and just stay away from this prop altogether.
Yeah, I think if Brogdon's in, to me, this is a little bit, definitely a tier behind the Kevin Huerter and Michael Porter Jr. play. It's maybe more of a 7-pointer, I guess an 8-pointer, depending upon the slate. But then if you get Brogdon out, I think this is one that probably is going to skew the over a little bit more, not in a way where it'd be crazy high confidence, but this is one of those props that I think has a lot of volatility based upon the injury news we're going to get. So no house advantage can adjust for that. So right now, I think play this one as an under, a very strong underplay. And if you get the news that Brogdon is out, maybe upgraded a little bit on the over, but not a priority play, I think, in that respect.
Okay. And friends, don't forget to play on No House Advantage, our sponsor who is taking a different spin on daily fantasy sports by offering player prop contests across the NBA, MLB, NFL, and PGA for cash prizes. This exclusively peer-to-peer fantasy sports platform levels the playing field and makes it easier for you to win real cash compared with your traditional DFS sites. The best part is you can join for free today. Just download the No House Advantage app and use promo code Awesemo to receive a deposit bonus of up to $50 for new signups. Be your friends, not the house. Win big with player props today. Moving right into good dog, bad dog. Don't know if we have the sound.
Meow.
Was that a cow or a cat?
I don't know. I just good cat, bad cat too. I don't know. I honestly was looking at something else and spaced out for a second.
I'm just doing one of those farm toys. We just say a bunch of different sound effects. And
thanks for letting us go long though, Laffy. Appreciate it. For all these great animal sounds.
In real life, there's no such thing as a bad dog. And betting in DFS, there are a lot of underdogs who may have no chance in their game. So who's a good dog to target? Who's a bad one? Eric, give us your good dog.
Yeah, I think we talked about it a little bit. Sacramento Kings, 6.5. Looks like 6.5 is the number across the board if you look at OddsShopper right now. I feel pretty confident that regardless of that Brogdon news, it's not going to change so much. I thought it was very interesting to see that Luka Doncic, that game that he got ruled out, it only really changed the line one. And it's got me thinking a lot about some of these late season scenarios where the good teams are going to be good and the bad teams are going to be bad. But Sacramento kind of breaks the mold. They have a couple guys that can go out there and heat check it. Buddy Hield, obviously being the expressed one. Delon Wright, basically a serviceable point guard, been filling in very nicely here and is basically one game sample we have in that role. I don't know. 6.5 feels like a good number. You have no Miles Turner in the paint. Josh Engelman's been beating the drum for how good of a defensive prowess he adds to this basketball team. Rashawn Holmes out there, Marvin Bagley back in the mix. I think the Kings 6.5 have some sneaky value on this slate. So I'm happy to be going that direction.
I think my good dog is going to be one where it's not a very big spread, but Atlanta is a 1-point dog at home. And I think if you can get some decent juice on the money line, I wouldn't mind taking them to win. I'm actually shocked this line is as close as it is. It is a back-to-back, so that might be part of it. And Phoenix did just play pretty competitively with Cleveland in a way that you wouldn't expect. But Atlanta, I think in this spot, they are getting healthier. They're a team that is going to be, it looks like heading to the playoffs. So a lot of things going their way. And I think this is sort of their time to show what they have as a unit overall. And going against Phoenix on a back-to-back, I think is a time to take advantage of that for them. So I think they win this one outright, and I think it's a pretty good bet take whether you are actually really, I would only take the money line on this one. I don't think I would take the 1-point spread.
Spags, hit us with your bad dog.
My bad dog, I think, it's tough because in my heart, I think it actually is Sacramento who maybe has a shot of getting dusted today. And that's sort of how the chalk goes south today. But I'll just say Orlando for the sake of safety here, where I don't think that affects your plays quite as much, where you're still going to get a lot of RJ Hampton in here. You're going to get probably a good amount of Mo Bamba if this game does blow out. And Boston, to me, even without having Jaylen Brown in the mix, they have enough dogs here who can go and have a big day. And Robert Williams getting unencumbered run at center is really appealing to me, where if he does get 30 minutes, he's a fantastic DFS play. You also can end up wreaking havoc on the Orlando bigs who are not ready to go against a guy like Time Lord. So I think Boston wins this one handily. Orlando would be a bad dog.
I bet Philly at -13. I already bet them while we were on the show at -14. That line's now up to 14.5 as it shows on OddsShopper right now. I will probably bet it again more than likely as we get closer to tip here, because I don't see any way that the Sixers don't completely blow them out. It would have to be a garbage time cover. It would have to be a Kelly Olynyk 50 spot. It would have to be so many things that would have to happen for Houston even to just stay remotely competitive in this game. Only 8 guys, a big feature of DFS, but that doesn't really matter to me in regards to the sports betting avenue where Philadelphia is just overmatching them.
All right. And friendly reminder, the deeper dive is coming up next on this stream. We're going a little longer today. We've got 3 more minutes, but the deeper dive will be next for all of you tuning in. Eric, do you want to do your pirate parlay of the day really quickly or no?
No, we're going to skip that today. I think we have some goodies coming in the mail that might be able to add a little bit to the features. I was going to say.
I cannot wait. Okay. Yes. We need the costume for the
I hope they poked holes for the parrot when shipping it.
Yeah. I don't have a joke for that.
Make or break. Which player or game currently looks like a make or break spot to you on tonight's Slate Spags?
The make or break, I think, has to be the Sacramento Kings. And I'm really going to weigh this here because I am concerned that they do get smoked. And I guess Indiana is shorthanded, so maybe they don't get there. But that is one thing that scares me. But I am going to be heavy on Delon Wright and heavy on Marvin Bagley, even if, I end up coming a little bit less than like 90% or 80%. I think I'll still be at least half my lineups, if not 2/3 of my lineups for both guys. It's a spot against Indiana where you're seeing gigantic success against them. I think you have to sort of trust that more than anything. Some ways this game could get weird, but Delon Wright, really the only ball handler that the Kings trusted. Marvin Bagley, a guy they still have draft capital invested in, who it behooves them to get better results than they had yesterday. So I think that happens today, and I'm hoping it happens today. That's my make or break.
It's definitely the Houston Rockets for me. I mean, I can't believe I'm expecting this ownership to shoot to the moon over the course of the next hour and a half. It hasn't shown up yet here. Maybe I haven't refreshed it yet, but I'm expecting them to be the heavy chalk alongside Sacramento. There's only 8 guys, possibly 7. I'm guessing they rule in Augustine, whether he's going to play or not, just so they play the game and don't have to forfeit. That seems like an embarrassing thing for an NBA team to have to do, but whatever. I'm definitely going to be playing a lot of Houston Rockets, and I see no way around it.
All right. And quickly, Eric, give us your fade of the day. It cannot be your eyebrows.
Oh, wow.
I was waiting for that eyebrows joke too. I was keeping it queued up in my back pocket, and now it's gone. I'm so sad.
Yeah. Well, how's it feel to have Kayla own you? What's that like? That's fun. She's owned my soul a couple times. It's fine. What we do in the shadows, still fantastic. Leave me alone. I'm probably going to say fade of the day. Ooh, this feels gross because I don't want to do it. But Domantas Sabonis over on DraftKings, 10-6 is a hefty number. I think I'm going to be prioritizing Tatum. I know that Orlando matchup looks yucky, but Jaylen Brown out. I think I'd rather go there, power forward. I'd rather get up to Giannis. Domantas Sabonis, I was super heavy on the other night. I know it's Sacramento as well, coming off back-to-back 70 spots, but 10-6 is a large number for Domantas. I'm going to fade that.
I think it's a good call as well. If you do get Brogdon in, especially, I think Sabonis will be overvalued as a result. I think my faded data is going to be Austin Rivers. I've talked about it on the show. I'm hoping something else opens up at that price point so I can go somewhere else. If not, I'm going to have to make the choice of just like, do I want him out entirely because I just don't believe in him, or do I want to get some percentage? But either way, I'll be under the field on what's projected for him. I just think that's the kind of crappy play you can avoid on a slate of this size. So that's what I'll try to do.
Awesome. I had no fun with you guys today.
Thank you. I'm glad. That's what I strive for here. Misery amongst us all.
It was a really fun show. I was joking. Thank you to Spags and Eric. Thanks to Laffy for giving us a few extra minutes today. Don't forget the like button and subscribe. Deeper Dive and Live Before Lock are coming your way next. We'll see you on the tip-off tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern. Good night.
/Lindquist out.
That's my guitar solos.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Awesemo.com NBA Deeper Dive. Dave Loughran, along with me is Adam Scherer, breaking down a 9-game slate today. Coming in a little bit after the start time, but that's because, well, the tip-off, boys and girl, were doing such a good job. They needed to keep going. It definitely wasn't because they were through 3 segments at like the 38-minute mark, but great show anyway. Happy to have you guys with us. Hammer that thumbs up as we get started. Make me proud with a solid ratio here today. We got, 735 watching. That number will come up. Let's pump that to like a 50% ratio and just, shoot this into the next stratosphere. But really the most important thing, subscribe to the channel. That helps us greatly. Help us keep making this the best DFS channel out there, and hit the notification bell as well. Adam, what's going on, brother?
Not much, man. The slate feels really similar to yesterday. Like, there's so many comparisons. There's a lot to talk about in some games, not much in other games. I think it should be another pretty fun one. Yeah,
I mean, if fun is one way to consider it, the thing is, like, people always talk about April and May basketball and how bad and how dreadful and ugly it is, and to a large extent that's true. But being able to work this out, even me being on the show with you and hearing your opinion on these, and you might see a rotation differently than I do if a certain player is out, that stuff's super valuable. You know what I mean? Just being able to sit and go and bounce ideas off of each other, and being able to either come to an agreement or convince each other that one spot makes more sense than the other, because there are so many moving parts on these slates. And I'm glad personally to be doing these type of shows heading into lock.
Yeah, for sure. And this is also the first slate we've had in a while where we're back to having one of those 8-man, possibly 7-man rotations with Houston playing.
Yeah, dude, this is getting out of control. I hit that one at 13. I think it's moved to 14.5. But given Philadelphia's track record against teams like San Antonio when they sit all of their starters, I can't say I feel all that confident. We will get to that game, though, and there is a lot to talk about here. So we'll dive right into it. But before we do, the first and foremost, the question comes to you. I feel like I've been repetitive with this, but it needs to be done. Your overview of this slate. Are we stars and scrubs? Are there some really good mid-range spots today? And how many of these top-tier guys do we like? Because there are some really good top-tier options in good spots, namely Westbrook and Giannis in a game with a 240-plus total. Sabonis we'll get to in a little bit, but he's seen his price skyrocket, waiting on the Brogdon news. And then guys like Towns against Memphis. Joel Embiid, does he play more than 25 minutes today? That is a legitimate concern. So there's so much going on that we got to get into.
Yeah, I mean, I think it naturally ends up being a stars and scrubs slate. There's not a ton of like really, really cheap value, but there's a little bit on Houston, a little bit from Denver. But you're just going to get a lot of cheap guys, even if they're not minimum salary, in that like 4K range, they look pretty good. Plenty of guys to pay up for, Westbrook and Giannis playing against each other. But then you also have Jokic, you have Embiid, you have Towns. I think it'll be a pretty interesting tournament slate. Like, I think cash lineups are more or less going to make themselves. They typically do it this time of year. But in tournaments, you're going to have, very similar to yesterday, a lot of ownership going to some very good chalk. And you saw that yesterday too. But then what you still see is you'll get really, really low ownership on guys that are still good plays. Like, obviously the one you needed to win tournaments yesterday, or that would have really helped, was Chris Paul, who was only 1% owned on DraftKings. The plays like that, where they're still good, they're just not as good as all the other underpriced guys on the slate, where you get them at like 1% ownership. To me, that makes tournaments kind of fun, where, you can mix those guys in, what earlier in the season on normal slates would have been guys that actually looked good, mixing guys at very, very low ownership that are still like good players. To me, that's kind of fun.
It is kind of fun. I'm looking forward to it. Today's show sponsored by No House Advantage. You guys already know, and if you don't, maybe you're new to the channel, welcome. We're happy to have you here. Hit that join button down below if you want access to some cool stuff along the way. But No House Advantage, peer-to-peer player prop betting that is different than singles betting, right? Single player props on so many other books where you're not able to parlay them. In this case, it's tournament style form, guaranteed prize pools over at No House Advantage. If you download the app, you take, and you heard it on the tip-off show, you take the ones that you're most confident in, you put them at the top, they get the most points. The ones you're least confident in go at the bottom, they get the fewest points. There's strategy involved. But the best part about all of this isn't the fact that you get $20 when you deposit for the first time and sign up using the promo code Awesemo, AWESEMO. But even more important than that, when you're looking towards, because $20 can disappear like that, right? But when you're talking about sustained winning and being able to have the tools that get you where you need to go, well, we have tools over at Awesemo that are totally free, not just today, but every single day. They are totally free for No House Advantage. Take advantage of the No House Advantage player prop tool. Take advantage. And by the way, I think it's actually a $50 promo, which I'll get to in a second because we changed the read today. I just go off the top of the dome over here, Adam. Also, the optimal lineups tool. You never have to pay for them. Use them as a companion piece when you're building lineups at No House Advantage when you download the app. So let me see here. Let me see. Not doing my due diligence these days. Yeah. Okay. For tonight only, it's a $50 first match deposit bonus. For $50 when you sign up and deposit for the first time using the promo code Awesemo. They've got the $5,000 to first contest tonight as well. That's huge. Good thing I read this read right at the last second. So check it out. Use our tools along with it. Download the app. Use the promo code Awesemo. Get your $50 sign-up bonus. And hopefully someone on this stream takes down that 5K and can tweet at us or let us know tomorrow when they do. No House
Advantage. An extra 10
Check
minutes and still couldn't get the ad read right. Amateur hour over here.
What's that?
I said you got an extra 10 minutes and you still couldn't get the ad read right.
I do everything off the top of the dome, man. I think it's more organic. It sounds better, you know what I mean? But sometimes it backfires. All right, let's talk about Boston and Orlando. The Celtics will be without Jaylen Brown. They'll also be without Tristan Thompson, who I actually just saw on TV. My wife was watching the Kardashians. You watch the Kardashians?
Of course, man. Never miss it.
I wasn't sure, dude. I don't know. I don't know your life. Do you like anybody?
I watch like no movies and no TV, but the Kardashians.
You do love the Kardashians. Talk to me about the Boston Celtics today and how big of an impact Jaylen Brown has. Because we always talk about the big three, right? And we've so often this season seen one or two of them out. Jaylen Brown's impact on this team, not only on usage, but on overall appeal for these guys tonight, given their salaries and the rest of the slate.
Yes, I mean, of course, it opens up minutes, it opens up usage, but you're getting Kemba back as well. So I think it's kind of just similar to what we've been seeing in the recent games where Brown was in and Kemba was out. It benefits Jason Tatum. He's got a 32% usage rate in the games he's played with Kemba and without Brown this year. He's averaged 38 minutes per game in those games as well. So he's expensive, but certainly someone that I still think looks good against a weak Orlando defense. Not the fastest paced game. There's a few games on the slate that are really going to be back and forth. This unlikely to be one of them, but Tatum's still going to get plenty of opportunities here. Kemba, I think, is a reasonable mid-range option, but again, doesn't really stand out just given the pace of this game. But he's got almost a 30% usage rate in the games without Brown as well. And then Evan Fournier should stay in that similar role that we were seeing before. He's a really difficult one to project for me because he's been absolutely awful since joining the Celtics. He's only averaged about 0.7 Draftkings points per minute, only has like a 16% usage rate. But we did see some signs of life last game. He shot 8 for 10 against Portland, had 21 actual points, played almost 34 minutes. Said after the game that he's been dealing with, he said it feels like he's playing through a concussion ever since he had COVID, that it's affecting his vision and he has headaches and stuff. I have no idea what to make of that. I think it basically just expands the range of outcomes for him because we don't know how he's feeling today. He's not going to tell us before the game. We don't know how much it's actually affecting him. And we don't have any sort of precedent for like how that affects a player's, baseline rates and stuff like that. So it just kind of makes it so I think the floor is lower than it otherwise would be. The ceiling is probably a little bit higher than we think because, maybe he just feels great today and gets back to being the normal Evan Fournier that he is. All that being said, I think, kind of just like a neutral mid-range option for Fournier that benefits from Brown being out.
Yeah, we talked about it this morning on the strategy show as well. Every single day of the week, you can check that out, 10 a.m. Eastern time. It is a fun show with good information along the way. The only one really getting any legitimately big ownership is Robert Williams. And he's you've seen ebbs and flows from Williams this year. And some of that's from Brad Stevens restricting his minutes. Some of it's from Tristan Thompson being back. Are you on board with the quarter of the field having Robert Williams tonight?
Yeah, for sure. The only thing that kind of works against Williams is that not only are there a lot of very strong plays in his price range, but there's also a couple of very strong center plays. But he's averaged 25 minutes per game as a starter this year in 11 starts. In 6 starts without Tristan Thompson, 25 minutes per game as well. But Thompson being out, I think, makes it at least a little bit more likely that if he's able to avoid foul trouble, he picks up a couple of extra minutes. But the thing about Williams is that in those starts, he actually has almost a 20% assist percentage. So you're seeing assists from him. You're getting almost a 20% 20% rebounding percentage as well. He's one of these guys that he contributes peripherals, doesn't really need the score. And it's a good matchup for that here against Orlando, who, since they traded Nikola Vucevic, has allowed the second most total rebounds per game, despite not being a fast-paced team. So I think it sets up as a very good spot for Williams. He's been productive this year. He's not expensive at all. So he's one of my favorite center options.
He's also the highest projected owned center on FanDuel as well, also at 5,400. So.
Yeah, and I think that makes sense because it's another weird center slate, kind of like yesterday, where there's centers that are good players, they're good fantasy producers, but when you start to make a lineup, you kind of find yourself moving down at the center position, I think, because like when you look at the top, Jokic is in a tough spot, especially compared to the other pay up options. Embiid is in a game where we're not going to project blowouts, but they should blow out Houston. So it's just a slate where I think there's so many good pay up options in other positions. You're going to naturally kind of work your way down the center position. And then you get Robert Williams there, who averages like 1.25 fantasy points per minute and is most likely starting with Thompson out.
Yeah. And I'm not totally opposed to maybe having less Jokic against New York. Like, I think that's in any spot Jokic can smash, but
for sure.
Towns being another one, perfectly fine spot, but most of the time I don't think getting away from Towns, or at least coming in underweight on him, is going to destroy you. And Joel Embiid, I mean, Adam, I am legitimately concerned about the blowout here, and I think there is precedent to back that up, particularly of late, where they've won 5 straight games, and he's played like 25 or 26 minutes in 3 of those. The other, he played 35, but it was an overtime game, only played 30 in regulation, and would have played a lot less in that Bulls game if they didn't make a late push. So they have a very, very easy schedule. They could legitimately win out over the rest of the season, and we'll get to that game. But point being, I'm agreeing with you. There are other pay up options that you can get away from from center paying up and still feel really good about your lineup. So, Evan Fournier's former team, the Orlando Magic, will be without Terrence Ross. They'll be without Okeke. They'll be without James Ennis. Michael Carter-Williams remains sidelined. And we are waiting on news from Wendell Carter Jr., who is now questionable due to a cut near his left eye. Listen, it's better than tooth pain, right? No, I'm sorry. Sore tooth.
Yeah, they're actually making fun of that on the Detroit game last night, too.
Were they making fun of the tooth?
Yeah. I don't remember I don't know who the broadcaster was, but he just said something like, "Is that really why he's not playing?" Like, I just exactly. He's like, "That's fine," but I just wouldn't have told people that was the reason.
Right, exactly what you said on yesterday's stream. Yeah. The same question. How big is the impact on Carter Jr. being out today? If he's not yet, he's questionable. But in the event that he's out, given that Okeke's already out, and a lot of other players are out, what does that do for someone like Wagner, who's been starting at the 4, and particularly Mo Bamba, who last game played 28.5 minutes off the bench and had a huge 15-point double-double?
Yeah, I mean, Carter's status is huge here because I believe if he doesn't play, they have 8 guys. Unless there's someone that they just signed that I'm unaware of, they'll have 8 guys.
They've already only been running 9 too.
Right. So the obvious guy that he has an impact on is Mo Bamba, who's averaged almost 1.3 Draftkings points per minute since the Vooch trade. You've already seen him start taking minutes from Wendell Carter. And I think even if Carter plays, Bamba's a reasonable tournament option on Draftkings. He's averaged 23 minutes per game over their last 10. Carter's averaged 25. But like last game, you saw, Bamba play well in the second half, played the entire fourth quarter along with Orlando's second unit. So he has a massive ceiling, even if Carter plays. But if Carter is out, then you're expecting 30 plus minutes from Mo Bamba, who produces at a very high rate and would end up looking like one of the best options on the slate. But then also if Carter is out, I expect that you get Mo Wagner as the backup center, which of course isn't the case when it's Carter and Bamba both playing. And while Wagner has been, a pretty solid fantasy option recently, it would be a bump for him because we have seen his rebounding numbers take a hit. He only has about a 9% rebounding percentage with Orlando compared to about 12.5% for his career. So you're seeing him playing these minutes at the 4, hurting his rebounding numbers. If he's getting like 16 to 18 minutes at center behind Mo Bamba, that's going to make him even more productive. And he played 41 minutes last game as it is. So, the playing time should be there one way or the other. He'll look good either way, but he looks even better if Carter is out because he gets those backup center minutes. It would also have a trickle-down effect on Brazdeikis, who played a ton of minutes last game, but that was, again, you saw a weird rotation from Orlando where their second unit played well. They ended up playing they all played the final like 16 plus minutes of that game. So he benefited from that. I think if you see a normal rotation with Wendell Carter in, Brazdeikis most likely plays like 24 to 26 minutes. But if you take Wendell Carter out and you have Mo Wagner playing those backup center minutes, by extension, you're probably looking at 30 plus minutes from a minimum salary Brazdeikis again.
I think you could. Brazdeikis, it was signed to a 10-day and then Franks was released. So I think you're right that there's only 8 players if Carter Jr. sits. I was just looking over it now.
Yeah, that's if there's a ninth one, I have no idea who it is.
So would you have any priorities? And I want to get through this game because we got a lot to get to, but would you have any priorities if Wendell Carter Jr. is in, and then if he's out, just so we can cap this one off and move forward?
Yeah. So if he's in, I think that Wagner is a good play. There's a lot of very good power forwards. So priority, I'd be a little bit hesitant, but I think Wagner is a good play if Carter is in. I think Bamba on DraftKings is still worth a look in tournaments, but again, more of a secondary option. And then the same can be said for RJ Hampton and Brasdikis on DraftKings, because Hampton has played 30 and 35 minutes the last 2 games. I think that on average, you're going to get like 28 to 30 minutes from him. But on DraftKings, he's only 4,500, and then Brasdikis is the minimum salary. So I wouldn't say any of them are priorities. I would say Wagner's the top one, followed by Bamba, Hampton, Brasdikis if Carter is in. If he's out, then you have priorities in Bamba, in Wagner, in Brasdikis, I think.
Okay. Portland and Cleveland. Portland Trail Blazers going up against the Cleveland team that, I mean, they did something magical yesterday. They were 12.5-point dogs, took Phoenix to overtime, and managed to lose by 16. So that is a remarkable feat. I touched on it enough this morning. I won't go any further, but that is incredible. They got outscored 20-4 in overtime and actually had a full minute of blowout run at the back of their bench. That's how bad they got beat over a 5-minute overtime period. They're 12-point dogs today, Adam, 228.5 total. Norman Powell's questionable. Damian Lillard is probable. Can we get to any of these guys for the Blazers tonight?
So first off, Wendell Carter Jr. is out.
Oh, okay. How about that? Perfect timing.
Yeah. So we got 2 teams with 8 players tonight. To get to the Portland game, I feel kind of similarly to them, how I did about Phoenix against Cleveland last night, where they don't stand out. The Portland guys don't stand out as far as like guys that I would expect to be getting, like 30, 40% of my lineups or anything like that, because they are pretty much healthy. Cleveland's not a fast-paced team, but at the same time, you still get massive upside from guys like Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum, and they're going to be relatively low owned because they don't project as the top options. So they fill that same role that, Devin Booker and Chris Paul did last night. One thing that I think is interesting for Damian Lillard in particular is Cleveland this year has allowed the most points per possession, or they're tied for the most points per possession to pick and roll ball handlers. Lillard third in the league in pick and roll possessions per game, 47% of his offensive possessions are in the pick and roll. So I think, again, that's not something that makes him a priority on the slate, but it does make him a little bit more likely to have a big game in this particular matchup. So Lillard, someone I think certainly you can be using as a somewhat contrarian option in tournaments where you have more popular guys elsewhere.
Is that pretty much the start and end, or the beginning and end for Portland?
Yeah, I mean, you can take the same logic on Lillard. You can apply it to McCollum. You can apply it to Nurkic. But yeah, it's pretty much, guys that these guys will fit into some lineups nicely because they do play a lot of minutes. The matchup is fine. They're good players. They're good fantasy producers. But there's none of them stand out as someone that I would anticipate being in, like 2/3 of my lineups or anything like that.
So on the Cleveland side, we just saw some absolute craziness yesterday, right? Outside of what Jeremiah Martin and Broderick Thomas getting a minute of overtime run each at that blowout, we saw really a 7-man rotation for the most part. Outside of what's his name? Kabengele. Outside of that, he played like 4 or 5 minutes, maybe less, like 3 minutes in the first half. And that was all he played until that final minute. So do you think it's possible that we see another essentially 7-man rotation for Cleveland today?
I think it's unlikely for a couple of reasons. For one, that game went to overtime, so it seems logical that the Cavs might play more than 7 guys in their rotation tonight. For 2, Isaiah Hartenstein's probable. He was out, so I fully expect him to be the backup to Jared Allen and to take minutes off of Dean Wade. 3, Anderson Varejao is available. I have no idea if they plan on playing him. I assume that they don't, but that is, one more body that they have. But my guess is that you see at least an 8-man rotation with Hartenstein joining it. And it wouldn't be shocking if you just saw Broderick Thomas or Kabengele get into the rotation and kind of spell these guys to some extent, so that like instead of playing 40 minutes, Osman and Okoro play like 36 instead.
Does that mean any of these guys appeal to you?
Yeah, they still do. I think Chetty, his value, I guess, is going down as we get more injury news, kind of like he did yesterday as well. But he's, playing massive minutes in these starts. Played another 40 in regulation yesterday. I assume you're getting 36 plus from him here. He averages about 0.8 fantasy points per minute as a starter this year. So he's still a pretty solid small forward option. Colin Sexton, I think, is going to be a little bit easier to get to today than he was yesterday, but still pretty similar in that, I think he benefits from Garland being out. He's got a 31% usage rate, 28% assist percentage without him on the floor this year, but there's still a lot of very strong guard options. So more of a secondary play for me.
All right. Now, given that Anderson Varejao is like a 0.9 fantasy point per minute guy for his career, you have to have interest there, right?
Yeah, of course.
It's amazing that he's back. I saw that the other day and just did a triple take on the thinking that how is he back in the league playing on a team that's losing intentionally?
How old do you think he is?
38.
You knew that?
Yes. I've actually brought it up to you just the other day on the deeper dive.
That might be why I knew it.
Yes, I knew what his age was. Maybe it was Josh. I don't know, but it sounds better.
Yes, I didn't know his age. I knew he was 2 years older than LeBron.
Right. Yeah. He's not that old, but he's pretty old to be coming back onto a bad team to maybe not play. But yeah, maybe he's just strapped for cash.
Yeah, I don't know. But I do know if you had told me like prior to whoever told me he was 2 years older than LeBron, I would have guessed he was like 7 years older.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's just weird though, because when guys retire 4 years ago, you kind of forget how long they were in the league and you just think about how long they've been retired.
Yeah. Like you could tell me Anderson Varejao played from like the time I was 8 until I was like 18 and I'd believe you. Or you could tell me he played from when I was like 18 to 28 and I believe you.
For sure. What I'm saying is most people don't have such a prolonged career like LeBron James. So if he had happened to retire 2 years ago, you might feel like he's been in the league since, 95 too.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
Because Varejao's first season was after LeBron's first season.
Yeah, Varejao's first season was 2004.
And LeBron's was 03.
03, yeah.
Which is even crazier. All right, yeah. Phoenix and Atlanta. I know you have a lot to say on this game. Listen, we were not particularly high on it yesterday. And, of course, Cleveland kept it close until overtime. And Chris Paul had an insanely good game, 23-16, 6 stocks, 6 rebounds, 69 DraftKings points. That's for you, Josh. Devin Booker went off from a scoring standpoint. Do you think that Phoenix today, laying 1 point on the road, should be a competitive game? Second of a back-to-back. They played overtime as well. 228.5 total. Do you think Phoenix anywhere stands out to us on the 9-gamer?
I wouldn't say stands out. I think it's very similar to yesterday. Someone on Twitter yesterday, I think, tried to mock me for not being on Chris Paul. Like he was 1% owned. But the thing is, like, the reason guys are that low owned in tournaments is not because they're like not good plays or they don't have the potential to do well. It's that they're just less likely than other guys. But like, if you look like any of the lineups, the few lineups I had Chris Paul in, for example, it was just like, I had 40% owned guy, 50% owned guy, 50% owned guy. I needed like that 1 to 2% owned guy that was unlikely to be the best play on the slate, but that at least is talented enough. And that's kind of what Paul gives you. That's what Booker gives you. That's kind of what you get from both sides of this game, really. Guys that, both of these teams are healthy for the most part. Jay Crowder being out doesn't have a really big impact on a whole lot. So you still get a ceiling from Devin Booker and from Chris Paul because they're so good, but they're just going to hit that. They're going to get there less likely than a lot of other plays on the slate, which is why they'll be low owned and why basically their purpose here is just to be contrarian pieces in tournaments where you need someone to make your team different because you've played a lot of popular players elsewhere. That's kind of where Booker and Paul fit in. Torrey Craig's a reasonable value. I think he's someone you could use as a pivot to Austin Rivers, for example. He played another 30 minutes in regulation yesterday. Bridges plays a lot of minutes. He's someone you could use as a pivot to Cedi Osman, assuming Osman's going to get more ownership. But, again, in terms of priorities, guys that I'm building around, there's nothing here.
Okay. What about the Atlanta side? Basically the only one in our boom bust tool with any real legitimate chance of being in the optimal lineup is Trae Young with an optimal lineup percentage of 8.2%. Now, you're not saying that some of these other guys can't, Adam, but they're at 3, 2, 1, less than 1% throughout the rest of the entire team.
Yeah, Capella is actually the guy that I'm most interested in here because, for one, the center position, there are a couple of really good plays again with Williams and Bamba, but the mid-range, kind of thin. But Capella, it still seems like people are sort of under projecting him based on earlier in the year. You know, they're giving him 30, 31 minutes. We saw him play another 35 yesterday. I think that if this game's, or last game rather, I think if this game's competitive, there's a good chance you're seeing another 33, 34 minutes from Capella. He is priced up, but he's almost a 1.4 fantasy point per minute guy this year. So he does have a really high ceiling, but again, just somebody that I think is going to be very difficult to prioritize. Same can be said for Trae Young that I said about Lillard and about Booker and about Paul, but he's got the least appealing price point of the group. So, Trae Young can go have a massive tournament winning game. It's pretty unlikely to happen compared to other options on this slate, but, I don't think people need me to tell them Trae Young can have a big game, but, it's possible. So should be low owned for a reason, but if you land on some Trae Young in tournaments, it's fine.
Let's talk about the Sixers then, along with Houston. Sixers 14.5 point favorites. They were already huge favorites in Houston for very obvious reasons. They are healthy, but Christian Wood's now doubtful. That's pretty significant news. Daniel House is doubtful. Jason Tate is out. DJ Wilson, Sterling Brown are out. We'll get to Houston because I think this center rotation now is going to be really, really interesting with DJ Wilson also sidelined, assuming Christian Wood doesn't play. But let's kind of cruise through this Philadelphia team first. Adam, is it possible that it stays close? Sure. Yesterday was a perfect example of that between Phoenix and Cleveland. And just a few days back, Philadelphia against the Skeleton Crew San Antonio team. That game also went to overtime, despite them being huge favorites. So is it possible? Yes. Is this Houston team completely decimated without a single star? Yeah, they have Porter, they have Olynyk, all of that's good and well. But Philly's totally healthy with Embiid, with Simmons, Tobias, Seth Curry. I mean, this is really a tough spot, not only for Houston to stop Philly, but to be able to score against them as well. Do you think – I won't ask if you think it blows out because, like we know, there's just no saying. But does Philadelphia look like a team that's worth taking that risk on tonight would be the way to phrase it?
I think that they're good pieces in tournaments because there's very clearly a high ceiling here. Houston's one of the fastest teams in the league. They're the worst defense in the league, and they're playing shorthanded. So, if somehow this game stays close and you get 34 minutes from Embiid, most likely it's staying close because someone or a couple guys on Houston are having better games than normal, and then Embiid's just smashing. And it would be really hard to see how he doesn't get it done tonight. So I do think that they're useful in tournaments, particularly Embiid and Harris out of the main guys because the prices are pretty good. Jokic is someone that normally knocks Embiid's ownership down. It's a tough spot for Jokic tonight. If you ignore the blowout risk, it's a much more favorable matchup for Embiid. So, I think he does have a really high ceiling right now, projected for 10% ownership with a 10% chance of being in the optimal lineup on DraftKings. I think that makes sense. Harris, similar, 12% ownership, 12% chance of being in the optimal. They're guys that I think kind of just sort of round out lineups. One guy that I'm really interested in on DraftKings, and I'm looking now at his ownership because I'm curious to see where it comes in. Only projected for about 10% ownership at 4K. Seth Curry has played 30 and 35 minutes the last couple of games. He's averaged 30 minutes per game this year, about 0.8 DraftKings points per minute. Fanduel, I'm not really interested, but 4K on DraftKings is a pretty interesting price point to me because, I think it's likely he produces at a above average rate in this matchup. And so, maybe he loses a couple minutes in a blowout, but even if you get like 25, 26 minutes from Curry at 4K, I think he's likely to pay off his salary.
K Cork says if they have 7 guys, a blowout doesn't matter much for Houston. I'm not worried about that. First of all, you need 8, but I'm not worried about them having 7 players. That's not my concern. I'm talking about Philadelphia.
Yeah,
Houston has to play.
Yeah, so, Houston's guys are going to play regardless of the score.
Exactly. It doesn't really matter. What I'm saying is Houston could still score 90 points and, you could have 5 different players or even 6 different players get huge minutes. And then Houston's great. But if Philly scores 140, and a lot of that comes from their bench, it's a concern. But at the same time, Adam, it's not insane to think that Joel Embiid goes for 60 in 25 minutes either. I'm not saying that's likely, but Domantas Sabonis only played 3 quarters the other day and dropped 75 against OKC. So these are at least things we have to consider, right? Yeah,
I mean, there's no answer on Houston for Embiid. And I don't think, and this is one of the things that comes up when you talk about blowouts too. It's really unlikely that Philadelphia blows out Houston. So let's say Embiid plays 25 minutes because the game blows out. It's really unlikely that Embiid only scores like 40 fantasy points or something. It's pretty likely that he goes for 55 or 60 in 25 minutes, and that's why the game blew out. So that's why I still think that these guys have merit in tournaments because, not only is it's not guaranteed to blow out, but also because if it does, these guys produced at a really high rate. It's just the bigger issue, and the reason their ownership is low, I think, is just that, you have at the center position, you have Bamba, you have Williams to pay down for. At power forward, you have a bunch of guys in really good spots to pay up for. You have some value there as well. So it's more so that it's just tough to prioritize them at their price points and their positions.
Let's talk about Houston. This is where the show begins to get interesting, folks. Kevin Porter Jr., Kelly Olynyk. These are the two guys up top. I actually want to start with Olynyk here because the center position is going to be completely decimated. No DJ Wilson, very likely not going to see Christian Wood. He's doubtful for this game. So I don't see any alternative to start at the 5 other than Olynyk, Adam. Like, is there anybody else? There's no one else on here.
No, there's not. We did just get news that Kyrie Thomas is planning to sign with the Rockets.
I saw that, but can he play?
I have no idea.
I was wondering to say, I didn't even want to bring it up because I just have no idea whether or not he can sign and be like, all right, I'll be there in 10.
Right. The only reason I'm bringing it up is just keep an eye out for news on that, because it would be a 9th body potentially. If he's able to play, but I have no idea. Like, I assume he would have had to be quarantining already. I assume he would have to be in Houston already. So I don't know. I assume he doesn't play, but just in case we get news that Kyrie Thomas is available, he did just sign with the Rockets apparently. So anyway, it could
be 8 if Augustine's out though, right?
Right. That's what I was gonna say, is it could just be like, if he's available, they say Augustine's not playing.
Right.
So back to Olynyk though. Yeah, I don't really know. Not the positions really matter in this case, but he's obviously going to have to play a lot of minutes. He's going to get minutes at center. He's not going to have to deal with playing alongside Christian Wood most likely. And Olynyk's been very productive since joining Houston anyway. He's averaged like 1.2 DraftKings points per minute. And I think one other thing to really like about him here is he's not scoring dependent. Like, he can score and he'll take on an elevated usage rate without these guys, but he gets assists, he gets rebounds, and he's playing huge minutes. So I think he's underpriced. I think he's another one of these the best center options on DraftKings. You can roster him at power forward. On FanDuel, he's a center. So he'll have to compete with Bamba and Williams, which should drive his ownership down a little bit there. But I think Olynyk clearly one of the top options tonight.
So do I. Bamba starting at the 5 with Carter Jr. out. I think we assume that would be the case, but it's Anthony Harris, Bacon, Wagner, and Bamba. That's what you would have assumed as well, right?
Yep.
All right. What about Kelly Olynyk is the easy spot to start here because the minutes are huge, and can he get into foul trouble? Sure, but Kelly Olynyk's really not all that interested in playing defense much anyway. Foul trouble has been a concern at some points, but I'm not worried about that. It's just, you can't be worried about that. What about Kevin Porter Jr. here? He went from a team where I think Harden was already gone, but there was Wall, there was Oladipo, there was Christian Wood. Now it's him and Kelly Olynyk shouldering the bulk of the load tonight, specifically with Christian Wood doubtful to play, and he's going to get huge minutes once again. It's not a great matchup, but you probably get between 37 and 40 minutes from Porter no matter what.
Yeah, so I think Porter's numbers are actually pretty interesting when you look at his time this year without Christian Wood, without John Wall, without Oladipo on the floor. He's only averaged 1.01 DraftKings points per minute, which at first glance, you're like, man, that kind of sucks. Like, I expect it to be a lot better. But he's got a 30% usage rate. He's got a 32% assist percentage. His true shooting percentage over those minutes is 46%. For the season, his true shooting percentage is 52.7%. So on the one hand, like, yeah, he hasn't been efficient without these, actual good players on the floor with him. And that's to be expected. But at the same time, it kind of alleviates my concern of the matchup with Philadelphia being tough, because he's already been extremely inefficient in these minutes. So you kind of have an idea of what his production looks like when he shoots poorly. And it's still a fantasy point per minute for a guy that's likely to play close to 40 minutes at $7,700. If he shoots well, he's going to be like one of the best plays on the slate. If he shoots poorly, as long as he gets his 38 to 40 minutes, he's still likely to be a very, very good play. So I really think looking at those numbers and the inefficiency and the lack of production that you've gotten from him kind of just gives you an idea of where the floor is. And then, we know how high his ceiling is. So I love Kevin Porter here.
Just get to
he's likely to play through a blowout.
For sure. Get to a couple super chats real quick. Avi from earlier says, Olynyk or Rudy Gobert on FanDuel or in FanDuel tournaments?
Olynyk.
Yeah, I'm with you. Chad says Simmons or Ja Morant on FanDuel. Thanks, fellas.
I don't have the pricing in front of me. I think Simmons.
Simmons. For me, it's just whoever isn't Simmons.
I'm
joking.
I'm looking now.
Morant's 7K. Simmons is 7,200. Morant's got Minnesota.
Give me Morant then.
Okay. Smart decision.
I assume
I'm just kidding. Somebody said, where is it? He said, I love you, Laffy, and you love your Sixers. You love your Sixers. I'm actually a pretty significant pessimist when it comes to the Philadelphia 76ers, but I'd be stupid to say, oh, well, I think this game stays close. And, Olynyk might be able to shut down Joel Embiid in the post. No, that's just, I'm just being a realist now. Let's cover the rest. I almost moved on, but we cannot do that because Houston likely only going to play maybe 7, have an 8th on there. Maybe they play 8, but either way, they're going to be super condensed rotation. We got through the 2 big names. Now let's talk about the fact that Jayshawn Tate is also out. So that leaves us with, KJ Martin Jr. Adam, we're going to have minutes from how many minutes does Anthony Lamb get tonight and Bradley and Armani Brooks?
Yeah. So KJ Martin right now projected to be the highest owned player on DraftKings, and I think he should be. He's
I think
only
it makes
39.
Perfect sense.
What'd you say?
I think it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, like he realistically might just not come off the floor. I mean, he probably will, but you're probably getting like 40 minutes from him or something like that. And he's averaged 0.8 DraftKings points per minute this year, so it's not like he's PJ Tucker or something like that. He actually can put up some stats. On FanDuel, it's a little bit more difficult at 4,700, but the minutes should be there. It's just a matter of opportunity cost at the position because you have Giannis, Sabonis, Tatum. So just so many guys at that position. But on DraftKings in particular, I think it makes perfect sense. He's the highest owned guy on the slate. Once you move past that, you still get guys where they're not getting into my first lineup, but there's still guys where if you're playing, 150 lineups or something like that, you should be getting to because there's going to be minutes for them. Avery Bradley on DraftKings with guard and forward eligibility at 3K probably plays 30 plus minutes tonight. It's Avery Bradley, so who knows what he does, but it's not that long ago. Remember when he was on Memphis and he was washed, we thought, and then he started playing point guard for them, and suddenly he's like getting a fantasy point per minute, and he was like the best DFS play for a month. Yeah. I mean, who knows? That's one of those things where you see it a lot in the NBA where like guys sort of take secondary, they take back seats on teams, and then they go to another team where there's actual opportunities and they remember how to play basketball again. So
Corey Joseph.
Yeah, Corey Joseph, another good example. Even Gary Harris has played better with Orlando than he was with Denver. Not back to the old Gary Harris, but he's still taking a step forward. So it wouldn't be surprising at all if you just saw Avery Bradley out there, running point and pick and rolls and playing a lot better. So definitely someone at 3K I think is worth a look on DraftKings. Armani Brooks should play big minutes, but he's priced up to 4,100, which makes him more of a secondary option. Jeffries, Lamb, Augustine, all guys that I don't really have any confidence in. I would rank them, Olynyk and Porter obviously in their own tier because they're the best producers on this team. Out of the value, I would say Martin 1, Bradley 2, Brooks 3, Jeffries and Lamb 4, 5, Augustine 6.
And a question I always have to ask you when it comes to a team with such a short bench, how many are you willing to have in the same lineup tonight?
On the slate, 3, because there's 2 teams that have 8 players. There's other teams that are shorthanded. There's a ton of high scoring games. There's a really high opportunity cost to every spot in your lineup tonight.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Chris Middleton is now doubtful for the Bucks.
Great.
Yep. Good thing we haven't gotten to that game yet. We'll cover it. Let's go to Sacramento and Indiana first. Remember too, when you hear us reference these tools at Awesemo, you hear us talk about the ownership, the boom bust tool, the top stacks tool for baseball, football, all of the other sports, the top fighter tool, top driver tool for NASCAR, all of that great stuff, top golfer tool. All of it can be found at awesemo.com. You go to awesemo.com/join. You want to check out whatever we have to offer, no matter whether you only have $4 to spend a week or you want to make a real investment. You want to go all access monthly. You want to do the full year. All of these tools built by Alex Baker, used by Alex Baker himself. Awesemo is what you may know him as. These are really, they have his thumbprint on them, along with so many other guys behind the scenes that are great players like Steve Buzzard, the Colts, Tom Kennedy, Eddie Lai, John Zahn, just great players that you're always seeing at the top of leaderboards, making an impact behind the scenes, putting out the best possible tools out there. And if you want to check them out, well, we've got free content as well. If you're not ready to take that dive, The premium content that we put in front of paywall each day rotates so you can get a look. Today, NBA player rankings, MLB top pitchers tool, PGA top golfers tool, and the NHL player and stack rankings. So check that out. While you're at it, go to awesemo.com/join. See if you like any of the subscriptions. I think you will. There's really something for everyone. And as you'll see later on in the show with the Hall of Fame segment, we got winners coming in every single day of the week. So if you have questions about this, you're confused, you're not sure which way to go about it, my DMs are open on Twitter. I'm happy to answer your questions if you're looking to sign up and not sure what direction to turn. All right, Sacramento and Indiana. No Halliburton, no De'Aaron Fox. Harrison Barnes very likely going to be out for this one as well. We've got a huge total between two fast-paced teams, one defense that before the injuries ranked dead last in the league, Adam. We're looking at 239.5. And last night, we not only almost had a triple-double from DeLon Wright, we almost had a 5x5 from DeLon Wright. He just had a huge game in 37 minutes against the lowly Thunder.
Yeah, massive game from him last night, and his salary still hasn't adjusted. So I think clearly one of the top plays tonight. He'll be, right now, we have him projected to be the second highest owned player on the slate, and for good reason. This is just another guy where he's not a bad basketball player. He's, been a backup in most spots throughout his career, but he's not bad, and he produces from a fantasy standpoint when he gets the opportunity. He's been just shy of a fantasy point per minute guy this year between his time in Detroit and in Sacramento. So even if you assume he just produces at that rate and plays 36 minutes, he's clearly a very good value. Indiana's been the fastest team in the league over the last month by a pretty wide margin, a couple of possessions ahead of Washington, and they haven't defended well. But you also have to assume that Wright produces at a higher rate than that because he gets more usage here. He gets a higher assist percentage. No real way around DeLon Wright here for me. I just think he's clearly one of the top plays.
Now I'm looking at the rest of this squad, and there's so many different ways to turn. And this is probably another example of you talking about opportunity cost, not just for the 2 8-man rotations, right? Or 8-man rosters, but also outside of DeLon Wright. Marvin Bagley, 5,400, rough game yesterday, but you're still going to get considerable playing time from him. I think Metu, we're paying close attention to that as well. He is questionable. Not sure how much that would eat into Marvin Bagley's production or minutes, but Terrence Davis being another one getting a little bit of ownership. Rashawn Holmes let people down yesterday, but he's still there as well at that starting center position, Adam. So outside of Wright, what are we doing with the Bagleys of this world and Holmes and Terrence Davis and even Buddy Hield, who's coming off a big one?
Yeah, so still several other spots to turn to here. Bagley's still 5,400 on DraftKings. 6,500 on Fanduel I think is fine, but it's a lot closer to where he should be priced. 5,400 on DraftKings. He disappointed yesterday, played just over 30 minutes, dealt with a little bit of foul trouble. But at the same time, it kind of just reinforces why, it reinforces that he's just drastically mispriced here because he produced at a much lower rate than normal. He scored like 24.5 DraftKings points in 30 minutes, despite being a greater than fantasy point per minute guy this year. And he put up a score that, while it didn't help you and you wished you didn't have him, it didn't kill your lineups. He still scored like 5 times his salary, which was, kind of whatever. So that kind of just like reinforces where the floor is for Bagley. And he's more likely to score 30 plus fantasy points here, assuming he plays 30 plus minutes again in a fast paced game. So once again, one of the better values on DraftKings, I think. You can look to guys like Hield and Holmes in tournaments because they shouldn't be that popular given all the other options on this slate, but you do get at least some bump in usage for Hield without Fox and without Halliburton. You get at least a little bit of a bump in assist percentage as well. Rashawn Holmes played 30 minutes. He just wasn't super productive, but this is someone that's averaged well over a fantasy point per minute this year. He's going to grade out behind Robert Williams and Mo Bamba in terms of value at center, but that's just going to drive down ownership. So I think DeLon Wright, Marvin Bagley are the priorities from Sacramento. Wright on both DraftKings and FanDuel. Bagley particularly on DraftKings, but then Hield, Holmes, even Terrence Davis, who played 30 minutes, are still perfectly fine guys to be working into some lineups because this should be a very high scoring game.
I would think so as well. Indiana's been involved in quite a bit of those lately, and I see no reason today wouldn't be the same. Like they scored $152 against OKC. The game after that, you saw 295 points in regulation. Before that, 243. 245, 244. These are just recent games. I'm not even like hand picking these, Adam. This is just their last 5 games. They've all been in the 240s. Even the one against OKC with 152 points for the Pacers. So bad defense right now, really playing up in pace. But you've seen Domantas Sabonis rise to 10,600 on DraftKings, coming off of 274 plus DraftKings point performances. Huge games here. On Fanduel, he's 10,300. I don't think we can start anywhere other than that, even though we're waiting on Malcolm Brogdon news as well.
Yeah, I mean, this game, the injury news is huge, and it kind of sucks that the Orlando game is the first game of the night, because you're going to most likely have guys in your lineup potentially before we get Indiana news. But I'm going to try, especially in like my 3-max stuff where I have a little bit more control over, the lineups that go in. I'm going to do what I can to leave as many spots open as possible for this Indiana news, because if Brogdon, we have Brogdon questionable, you have Goga questionable, you have, I think Lamb still questionable. If these guys play, then Sabonis is still reasonable, but clearly, overpriced for his average production if Brogdon in particular plays. But if they're out, then you're still getting, Domantas Sabonis looking like a very good option, even at his elevated price point. He played 43 minutes last game, and he's averaged 1.4 DraftKings points per minute without Brogdon and Turner on the floor this year. So, even if you assume he's going to play like 40 minutes tonight or something, he's still going to look like he's worth that salary at 10.6. You would get a bump for Karis LeVert as well, who at 8,800, I think is not a particularly good play if Malcolm Brogdon is in. But if Brogdon's out, you got 38 minutes from LeVert last game, and he's someone that's going to need to run the offense along with Sabonis. So he would look good. You would get some value from TJ McConnell. You'd get some value even at, 7K if all these guys are out from Moshe Brissett. So it is a spot where, I think that even though salaries have come up, there is still some meat on the bone if these guys are ruled out. If they're in, the only spot where I would have any interest, I think, is Sabonis. But even that, he'd fall behind Tatum. He falls behind Giannis. He falls behind Giannis anyway. But I think if Brogdon's out, I like Sabonis more than Tatum. If Brogdon's in, I like Tatum more than Sabonis. Just
to go back for a second, it looks like Sindarius Thornwell is active for Orlando.
Okay, good. They have 9 guys at least.
Yeah, it gives them 9. Not exactly like he is a big impact piece, but it appears that they have 9 instead of 8. Not that that's going to change your mind much on anything.
Sindarius Thornwell, definitely the perfect name to be on the Magic, though.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, well, we used to call him the Wizard.
Yeah.
Where else do you want to go for this Pacers team right now?
That's it.
Okay. Let's see here. Just making sure we've got. It looks like we're going to get the news that everyone's going to be out for Detroit tomorrow. So I'll clear those notifications during the next break. Memphis and Minnesota, Adam. The Memphis Grizzlies. They'll be without Jaren Jackson. That's it. They're 3.5-point favorites, 237.5 total. So another one north of 235. We already just had that question on Ja Morant or Ben Simmons. Morant is only 7K on FanDuel. On DraftKings, he's up to 8,300. Gets a little bit prohibitive once you start getting there and asking yourself whether you want to play him over other guys in a similar price range. Do you like anything from Memphis, Kyle Anderson, Joe Val? Are there spots that you can get pieces of tonight?
I like this game a lot more in tournaments than I do in cash games. It just speaks to, May basketball. This game has almost a 240-point total. And right now, the highest projected owned player on DraftKings is 15% from this entire game. And that's Karl Anthony Towns. So I think that there are pieces here that can round out your tournament lineups that give you a really high ceiling. Kyle Anderson, Dylan Brooks, I think both reasonably priced on DraftKings. Jaren Jackson being out should help to solidify Kyle Anderson's minutes. He's likely to play around 28 to 30 minutes again tonight. Dylan Brooks likely to play 30 to 32. A scoring dependent guy, but in a good matchup against a fast-paced Minnesota team that doesn't defend well, has a 26% usage rate this year, which is pretty high for guys at his price point, and he's in a good matchup. So I think they both look good. I don't think people need me to tell them that John Morant and Jonas Valanciunas are capable of having monster games in a good matchup against Minnesota. It's just when you think in terms of probability of success, you have Jonas Valanciunas and Kelly Olynyk, for example, at about the same price point. Olynyk playing on a team with 8 players, Valanciunas probably playing 28 minutes. Olynyk's going to win more than 50% of the time, but the field is well aware of that, and they're going to roster him more. So it kind of just comes down to what's the rest of your lineup look like. Does it make sense within that lineup to take the lower projected player in Valanciunas and hope to get lucky, basically?
On Minnesota, you're getting, I'd say, like you said, the total of this game is so high. The ownership is so low. Normally, though, Adam, I think you'd look at this and think it's crazy, but I do think there is some factor, at least, that there are so many other high-scoring or projected high-scoring games with very high totals that are pulling a ton of that ownership away, where people say, maybe I just don't want to guess on these Memphis players or pay a premium for guys like Ja Morant on DraftKings. But at the same time, this could end up being a shootout, and some of these players like Towns maybe even D'Angelo Russell or so, or Anthony Edwards could put up really big numbers. The biggest question is, though, do you want to pay a 7K plus price point for Russell today, for Edwards today? Do you want to go to Karl Anthony Towns when there are other really good top tier options across all of the positions? That's a question for you to answer.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. The reason ownership's low is a combination of, for one, there's several other high scoring games. And two, I mean, DFS just comes down to salaries and pricing, and the pricing on these teams is a lot closer to accurate than it is for other teams. So, you could tell me that a game is going to score 400 points, but if every player is $25,000, you wouldn't roster them, right? And that's kind of just what it comes back to here, where, there's going to be a lot of points scored here. There's players that are going to do well, but they have to do better than other player. It's still about maximizing upside in your lineup. So, I think Towns, if you get to him, great. It's very similar to Embiid. I think he's likely to have a very good game. Assuming the game's competitive, you're getting 34 or 35 minutes. He averages about a fantasy point and a half per minute. Russell and Edwards, we both know that they're fully capable of going out there, lighting it up and giving you 45, 50 fantasy points. But they just don't look like priorities here because there's a lot of other players that look better at their respective salaries. One spot that I think is interesting and not getting much ownership, it doesn't look like, Jaden McDaniels only projected for 4.8% ownership right now on DraftKings, 9% chance of being in the optimal lineup. Again, I haven't refreshed that since we got the Orlando news, so it probably does come down, but McDaniels hasn't been super productive this year. 0.65 DraftKings points per minute in his starts, but he's averaging like 32 minutes per game in those starts. He's only 3,700 on DraftKings. He's certainly someone that at low ownership, you can, use him as a pivot to someone like an Austin Rivers or something like that.
Where is that? Chris Jacobs. If Adam smiles, I promise y'all will make it to 400 likes. I don't know what this assumption is, that you never smile, that you're just stone faced for a straight hour every show.
For the show, I kind of feel like I probably am.
I don't think so. I don't know. I'm a pretty funny guy.
I mean, I feel like I at least like laugh at something a couple of times.
That's what I mean. Yeah. You get a good chuckle in there from time to time. There's this conversation in chat talking about Ja Morant being a top 5 point guard. No, he's not. But then the comment that someone said some bench point guards are better than Ja Morant. Name one bench point guard better than Ja Morant. Could you do it? And don't tell me Goran Dragic.
Well, at first I was going to say Tyus Jones. But
no.
TJ McConnell, maybe.
I'm a big fan of TJ McConnell. I think I'd still want Ja Morant.
Like, yeah, me too. I was thinking more in terms of like on a playoff team, providing something that helps win, and
McConnell definitely does that. Yeah, that's right. Fair. But I don't know. That's a tough call. He's not top 5 though. Ja Morant's not top 5 for sure. Especially if Adam actually had a couple point guards off the bench that he could think of being better than him. Do you have anything else for the Timberwolves today?
No.
Okay. Washington and Milwaukee. Let's get into the weeds here. Washington Wizards 4.5 point dogs, 242.5 total. I don't know if this has changed since we got the Middleton news. Holiday and Giannis Antetokounmpo both probable, by the way. So keep that in mind. The news of Middleton being out is impactful. It's never as impactful as someone like Giannis, a 1.7 fantasy point per minute guy being sidelined, but it is impactful. Let's cover the Wizards first, though, because you have no Rui Hachimura for whatever that's worth. Maybe Daniel Gafford gets some additional minutes and probably doesn't. But Russell Westbrook, people talking in chat earlier being worried that he won't be able to score going up amongst the trees in Milwaukee. But Russell Westbrook just dropped 80 DraftKings points with 14 points on 8 field goal attempts the other day. So I can't say I'm trembling over the idea that maybe his efficiency doesn't improve tonight. Now, the question is, again, where does he rank amongst the Giannis's and the Jokic's and the Embiid's for you when he's been so damn good?
First.
Yeah. There's a conversation we had this morning. Yes or no, he doesn't produce at the same clip as Giannis. But if you take his actual DraftKings points per minute, just using DraftKings because they have the triple-double bonus, you take his DraftKings points per minute, per game, and his minutes per game, right? You're over 1.6 DraftKings points per minute because you're factoring in those triple doubles, the double doubles, all of the bonuses. So take that and consider that he's playing legitimately 40 minutes in close games, I just don't know if you can find anything wrong with him right now.
Yeah, and it's the minutes. Like he's averaging the second most minutes per game in the league. So when you compare him to Giannis, Giannis does produce at a little bit higher rate, but Giannis on average is playing 34 to 35 minutes. Westbrook on average is playing 38 minutes. You can say if this game's close, maybe Giannis plays 37 minutes again. Sure. If Giannis plays 37 minutes, Westbrook probably plays 40. So that's really what it comes down to. Like he needs to be priced differently. He needs to be more expensive. I think that him and Giannis are very close here because Giannis does have the great matchup against Washington. Now he's playing without Middleton as well, which should help. But I think those two are just like far and away to me the top two. You can certainly make a case for Giannis over Westbrook here, but Westbrook, I mean, just massive minutes, triple doubles every game pretty much. There's nothing negative to say about Westbrook. I mean, even like if you're someone who maybe is like, oh, well, he's playing really, really well now, but he wasn't earlier in the season. Like we even have an answer for that. He said he's playing through a torn quad earlier in the season. So like, of course, and he was still producing, but just, not to the level he was now. But it makes sense that like his rebounding numbers are up. His assist numbers are up. He doesn't have a torn quad anymore.
Right. I know. There's just nothing to say about him right now that's going to deter me from getting the plenty of Russell Westbrook. What about the rest of the Wizards?
I think Davis Bertans looks like a good value here, which is never a good feeling. But the last game that Rui was out, Bertans played 34 minutes off the bench. Anthony Gill started. Bertans played behind him. I don't know that you get 34 minutes again, but he's 3,600 on DraftKings. Even if you get 30 to 32, and even considering how poorly he's played this year because he hasn't really gotten into a consistent shooting stroke, he's still averaged around 0.8 fantasy points per minute, despite not shooting well. You're facing a Milwaukee team that looks to force 3-point shooting. So I think that sets up well for Bertans. I think he's just too cheap considering that he's likely to play 30 plus minutes with Rui out tonight. And then Bradley Beal, I mentioned him in the deep dive today, very similar to what I had said about Kyrie Irving yesterday. I don't think he projects as a great option. Like there's pay up options that are going to get you or project to get you more points. There's a lot of guys that are going to project as better point per dollar options, but that's going to knock down the ownership on the leading scorer in the NBA playing in a game with a 240 plus point total. It's pretty easy to see how, if you play this game 100 times, Bradley Beal is the one that takes over, a decent chunk of those times and makes him, a kind of appealing lower owned guy in tournaments to get a piece of this game.
How do we approach the Bucks now with Middleton unlikely to play? Holiday, Giannis going to be active, at least that appears to be the case, against the fastest paced team in basketball.
Yeah, so I think it opens up. I mean, you're still taking 34 to 36 minutes out of the lineup here. We haven't gotten a game yet this year where Drew Holiday and Giannis play and Middleton doesn't. So it's kind of hard to get perfect rates there. But taking Middleton off the floor should increase the usage for both of them, I think. So far this year, Giannis has played 479 minutes without Middleton. He's got a 34% usage rate. He's averaged 1.74 DraftKings points per minute. Holiday, 26.6% usage rate, 1.3 DraftKings points per minute. If you put Giannis on the floor, I would expect Holiday's production to decrease. He's averaged 0.93 DraftKings points per minute with Giannis on and Middleton off, but their minutes most likely will be staggered as well. So you're probably getting like 30 to 40% of Holiday's minutes at the elevated rate. So I think it benefits both of those guys. It maybe does actually put Giannis a little ahead of Westbrook, but again, I think it's just splitting hairs there. It makes Holiday look a little bit better, but it also probably opens up minutes for Pat Connaughton, who's only 3,200. He's someone that certainly can produce in a fast-paced game here. It potentially opens up a couple of minutes for DiVincenzo, who is a reasonable value option, cheap way to get exposure here. Overall, I think that it probably doesn't make too many guys that weren't already good options into good options. Connaughton would be the exception there. I think Connaughton probably goes from, playing in the teens to playing like 26, 27 minutes. Holiday gets a nice bump and becomes a little bit easier to get to at 8K, I think.
Are there too many players on this Bucks roster for Middleton's absence to make a huge enough impact to really soar ownership through the roof on some of the cheap guys?
I think so for the most part. Like it's still hard to see, like PJ Tucker probably picks up some minutes, but who cares? Bryn Forbes maybe picks up some minutes, but again, probably not enough to really become a viable option tonight. Pat Connaughton's the one guy that goes from someone I had zero interest in to someone who I do think is viable now.
Okay. Simple enough for me. San Antonio and Utah. Let's make it happen with the Spurs here. On the road against the Jazz, 7-point dogs, 218.5 total. I don't anticipate us spending a whole lot of time on the San Antonio Spurs tonight, but maybe you'd like to prove me wrong here.
I have absolutely nothing to say about the Spurs. everyone knows DeRozan and Murray can score a lot of fantasy points. That's true. But even when you look to like, there's so many guys on the slate already that I've said that about, even where it's like they're going to be really hard to get to, but they're really good, and they'll fit in tournament lineups. Like you have Chris Paul, you have Booker, you have Lillard, you have McCollum, you have Nurkic. Like there's so many guys in better spots than San Antonio's in that are already going to be low owned because there's such good chalk elsewhere on the slate that I really just don't see any reason to dive into San Antonio here, beyond the obvious.
Utah's not as ugly on FanDuel. Clarkson 6,500. Bogdanovich is 57. Ingles is 6,000. I think all of those price points are perfectly reasonable, even on this slate. I wouldn't consider any of them top priorities, but on DraftKings, Clarkson 7,300 now. Ingles 6,700. I'd still rather play him over Clarkson at a $600 discount. Rudy Gobert is 8,700. The price point, and Bogdanovich is 6,800. So these are vastly different price points that you're paying for Utah Jazz players, depending on where you are on FanDuel or DraftKings.
Yeah, it's been the case the last few times they've played now. I think they look like really good options on FanDuel, or at least better options on DraftKings. Pretty much just, tournament plays for me, especially as we've gotten more news today. Jordan Clarkson has shot pretty poorly in the games without Conley and Mitchell. He has about a 30% usage rate, but again, the assist percentage only around 15%. So, like when you compare him to Joe Ingles, I think Clarkson is the one more likely to get 50 fantasy points because he can just go out there and pour in 40 actual points. But Ingles, I think, gives you the more stable production. His assist percentage is 38% in the 5 games he's played without Conley and Mitchell. That's really nice for a small forward, especially on FanDuel where you have to roster 2 of them. So, I do give him the edge in terms of it, at least in terms of, floor and who is less likely to completely disappoint you. On DraftKings, though, I think it's really difficult to prioritize any of these guys because they are priced up. Gobert certainly can give you a big game at 8,700, but there's a lot of very good centers that you don't have to go up there. If I am going to that price point, I think I'd be more inclined to go to Clint Capella. So yeah, not a whole lot from this game at all outside of, I think Clarkson and Ingles on FanDuel are underpriced.
I really wish you never started this Davis Bertans lookalike shit.
Dude, I didn't start it.
You 100%. Who else started it? Davis Bertans?
Born or developed into your looks?
Not even good. I'd admit, somebody asked me, I'd admit to looking like David Bertans if we hit like 1,000 likes. I mean, that's how out of the realm of possibilities this is. It would have to be something that's so extreme on a show that we have, 2,250 people watching, that it's not the case. And I wouldn't even mean it. So what's the point?
Notice how chat doesn't jump in and say I look like Dustin May, but they jump in and say you look like Davis Bertans because one of the two is true.
Yeah, I mean, they just don't want you to get really upset. I think that's the biggest part of this, is they don't want you to be upset when we see that it's the truth. I don't really think, the bad part is many people have come on and be like, hey, are these guys brothers? So what's that say about you?
I look like Davis Bertans' brother.
I don't think you and I really look that much alike to begin.
No, but it's kind of funny because I feel like I don't like, me and one of my best friends, we don't really look alike, but like people think we're brothers. I think I just kind of like look close enough to a lot of people that they feel like we're related. Yeah,
that's fair enough. It also looks alike. All of those Awesemo avatars at the top of all of the contests, Jordan Klein. Why don't we show a few of them in the Hall of Fame segment here and make things happen before we close it out with the New York Knicks and the Denver Nuggets, and then toss this one straight over to the Live Before Lock crew, Josh Engleman and Greg Ehrenberg, coming up next. Here we go. All you got to do to get up here, because who doesn't want to be up here bragging about their wins and getting the free month of Awesemo Plus, everything on the site. It's $100 value. Download the Awesemo profile picture at awesemo.com/avatar. Tweet your wins. You can keep them flipping, Jordan, at Awesemo Hall of Fame, Awesemo HOF, and get your free month. Include me in those tweets as well, if you don't mind. Gator Boy, 500, 2,000, and 750 on the same day, all rocking that Awesemo avatar. And Adam over here says, part of the lineup train for first on 40K Tuesday NBA shot. Thanks for the best DFS content. Congrats, dude. He chopped that with like 5 other Awesemo logos as well. And our boy, Eric Lindquist. You guys know him from the Tip-Off Show Live Before Lock. A $1,500 takedown there. Happy to see it. Enjoy your free month, Eric. And then a $5,600 win here. First in the NBA 25K Showtime single entry. Big stuff happening all across the board with the Awesemo avatars. I don't know if that one had it, but still happy to see it. Thanks for the tools. We'll take it. Congrats to all of you guys. You want to get on at awesemo.com/avatar. Use that avatar no matter where you're playing. And if you finish first through third in a contest of 5,000 or more, even if it's a nickel to enter, you get the free month, and we'll throw you up here on the screen because it's fun and we enjoy it. All right, New York and Denver. Let's close it out, Adam. The New York Knicks heading to Denver in the altitude, 4-point dogs, 215.5 total. Nerlens Noel, Alec Burks, both expected to play after they were absent last game, and more for Alec Burks. Anything at all you're going to for the Knicks today?
Julius Randle would be like the only thing, but even that, like I'd rather go to Sabonis, I'd rather go to Tatum, I'd rather go to Giannis, I'd rather go to a bunch of the cheaper power forwards. So, yeah, if you get to Randle and you like your lineup, then congratulations, but doesn't really stand out. Beyond that, I see nothing now that Nerlens Noel is expected to play.
Simple enough. We're making good time today. What are we doing with Denver? Nikola Jokic specifically, and then guys like Facundo Campazzo and the rest of these guys with Barton still out, PJ Dozier out, Monte Morris with no timetable to return either.
Yeah, so I mean, this one, Jokic is clearly where you start. He looks really good again. But the thing to me right now, at least looking at our ownership projections, he's not that far behind guys like Giannis and Westbrook. To me, you need a bigger gap than we currently have. It looks like we just updated it, so I'm looking again now. But on DraftKings right now, we have Giannis getting 35%, Westbrook getting 29%. Jokic getting 16. So it has evened out a bit, but still, I think he's just as matchup proof as he is, and as good as he is, and as good as a fantasy producer as he is, the pace of this game, I think, is really an issue because Washington and Milwaukee is just going to have so many possessions. The comparison I used in the deep dive today was if you were playing like an MLB slate and you got like rostering Jokic is like choosing to get 4 at-bats of Mike Trout while your opponents get 7. Like, assuming they're completely different at bats, you can still win. It's just less likely, and you need to get a pretty sizable ownership difference for it to be worth it. Right now, I don't really think that it is, given the number of extra possessions that Giannis and Westbrook are likely to get. The fact that Westbrook is likely to play more minutes than Jokic, and Giannis may play more minutes too. So, Jokic, I think there's nothing wrong with Jokic. It's more just how much I like Giannis and I like Westbrook. Beyond that, Campazzo, I think, is a reasonable value option, but we've gotten more value opening up as the day's gone on. That's kind of pushed him down. He should play 33, 34 minutes. Austin Rivers, I think, is the most likely to pick up extra minutes with PJ Dozier being out. He's averaged 28 minutes per game without Barton and Murray. I think it's likely you get 33 to 34 from him here. He's not a very good fantasy producer, but he is only 3,400 on DraftKings, so it's a pretty decent value. If you wanted to try and leverage against him and think about, like, what does Denver's rotation look like if people are wrong and Rivers only plays 28 minutes or so, I think JaMychal Green and Shaq Harrison would be the next two most likely to benefit. JaMychal Green in particular, I could see, he played 23 minutes last game. You could see Denver just run bigger lineups where they go with Campazzo, Porter, Gordon, Green, Jokic, in which case, if you got 24 to 26 minutes from JaMychal Green, he probably is a very, very good value. I don't think that's the most likely case, but it's something to at least consider if you're playing a lot of lineups. All
right. That'll do it for us. The hour is up. Thanks for tuning in. Don't go anywhere. Live Before Lock is coming up right after us. Josh Engleman and Greg Ehrenberg taking you up to lock. And our wonderful sponsor, No House Advantage, giving you $50 when you sign up using the promo code Awesemo today. All of the tools for No House Advantage, always free at awesemo.com as well. And a 30-minute No House Advantage show following Live Before Lock after that 7 p.m. lock time here for the 9-game slate. We'll see you guys back here soon. Good luck. Peace.
So John Means has a no-hitter. I haven't seen a single pitch. Do I turn the game on now?
John Means does?
Yeah.
What you
Oh. And we are live. Welcome to NBA Live Before Lock. It is Wednesday, May 5th, Cinco de Mayo. I've got carnitas in the oven right now. That's a true statement, actually. I'm not making that up, but they're probably going to burn because I got to do this show. So I'll let the wife handle it. Anyway, I am Josh Engleman. I am joined by Greg Ehrenberg. We are brought to you by No House Advantage. Not only are we brought to you by No House Advantage, but we're sticking around for an extra 30 minutes to talk even more No House Advantage when Live Before Lock is over. So let's start here. Greg, how are you?
Good. I've been looking at this slate for the last little while now, trying to get prepped. And as more and more news comes out, I'm really trying to find ways to differentiate. But the chalk is very obvious, and it's very good chalk, in my opinion, too. Like a lot of these value plays, I think they're going to have to crush. So, like yesterday, I know that like in our premium Slack chat, a bunch of people were DMing me like, "Hey, I'm tied with you in first in single entry contest," and it's like, yeah, a lot of us played the same lineup because it was just a lot of the right plays. And even on Fanduel, the first place was, how many people ended up splitting last night? It was like 3,000 or something ridiculous like that. And I think this is going to be something. It's going to be something similar tonight.
Oh, Matt Gates babysitter service. You are lucky that I'm feeling generous today. I would excommunicate you from this chat immediately if I could. And I can, but I'm feeling nice today. I don't know why. I shouldn't do it. Yeah, this slate is, I don't know how everybody doesn't end up on the exact same stuff. It's because there's so much that's just cut and dry. We're going to deal with it, though. We're going to work through all of it. So 2,200 and change viewers in here, less than 500 likes because Laffy's terrible at his job. So you guys know the drill. You know what I'm about to ask. Please hit that like button if you can. It makes me feel better to see that like number climb. Subscribe to the channel because subscriptions help the site. The more subs we get, the more content we can offer to you guys. And all this content that you watch on YouTube, it's free. So you really can't beat it. Hit the notification bell as well so you do not miss a thing. We'll be touching on No House Advantage all day and for the rest of the show. So 90 more minutes, 85 more minutes. But for right now, we got to touch on Soul Dope's super chat. He said, just watch both shows and still have no idea who to play on FanDuel besides Westbrook, Giannis, Porter, and Wright. Also, Greg, are you hiding a cat scratch on your eyebrows behind your glasses?
No, I did, although I was supposed to have a doctor's appointment this morning, not for actually coincidentally an eye doctor appointment because I'm trying to get a new prescription. And one of the reasons that I've been wearing glasses a little bit more recently, and I totally messed up the timing of it. So I was doing a baseball show during the time I was supposed to do that. So just didn't show up. So maybe it'll inhibit my ability to get glasses that I could actually see out of in the near future.
Well, there you go. And Soul Dope, trust me, we're going to be hitting on everybody that you need to be playing on both sites. And I guess we could just simply start here. Let's start with the guards now. And oy vey, this is just, we know what's good right out of the gate. That's easy, right? Play DeLon Wright, don't feel bad about it. Play Russell Westbrook, don't feel bad about it. What else are you looking at? Or do you look at DeLon Wright and Russell Westbrook and think, nah?
I mean, I've been overweight on Russell Westbrook. I want to say every single Wizards game for the last 2 months now. And why would I stop at this point? He crushes every single night. His price never goes up at this point. Like Fanduel and DraftKings are just like, oh, should we price this guy to an appropriate level? No, how about we don't do that? So if he actually had a reasonable price tag where we had to make decisions, right? So if Russell Westbrook was 12,500 or something like that. And by the way, we've seen stars priced up to those levels in previous years and just, it isn't getting done this year, but at the price point he's at now, it's still underpriced and it just hasn't moved for a while. So Russell Westbrook, and also all the value in the world on this slate. So yeah, I'm overweight to Russell Westbrook. He's a great play again. And DeLon Wright also exceptional value play.
How do you feel about Westbrook? So like Wright is a great play, either site, doesn't really matter just because of the role that he has. Do you feel the same about Westbrook on DraftKings and FanDuel?
Yes. I feel he's a stronger play on DraftKings than FanDuel just because there's more positional flexibility. And there's 3 point guards that I really like on FanDuel, DeLon Wright being one of the obvious ones. And then we have Drew Holiday and Russell Westbrook. So Drew Holiday with no Chris Middleton in the mix now. He is somebody who I think, particularly on DraftKings, going a little bit underrated, I think, by the field, because just looking at his numbers this year with Middleton off the court, we have Drew Holiday 26.2% usage rate. scores right around 1.3 fantasy points per minute. So Drew Holiday, when Middleton first got rolled out, I just assumed he was going to become, uber chalk, especially because it's a really plus matchup against the Wizards, which is also nice to get a lot of correlation there for pairing Drew Holiday and Russell Westbrook, or Russell Westbrook and Giannis in the same lineups. So to me, those are really the core 3 point guards I have, and I don't really have significant point guard exposure to anybody else other than those 3 guys.
I have nothing really to add. Russ is clearly the top pay up point guard option. I want him more than anybody else you're going to pay an arm and a leg for. So you mentioned Drew Holiday, who now with Chris Middleton out looks considerably better. So I would also like to get to a bunch of Drew Holiday, and DeLon Wright's been the best play of the day since the moment the slate posted salaries. And that's not really going to be going anywhere anytime soon. Is there anybody you see that you think is slipping through the cracks today?
It's hard to say that. Well, let's start with point guards, and we can move to shooting guards after. We're going to have some time to kill here. Let's see who I have the most recent ownership update now. So I think Pat Connaughton to a small extent, just because he's 3,200, and while there are other point guards that I like, never mind, he's a small forward eligibility. I don't know why I thought that he had a guard eligibility also, but in general, anyway, we could just talk about Pat Connaughton here because I was talking about the Bucks anyway. But Pat Connaughton, I thought he would be really chalky. At least I have him projected as if he should be really chalky today. And at 3,200, only picking up 13% ownership on DraftKings, that is a number to me that is much too low.
How many minutes are you giving him?
Let's see. Pulling it up. Off the top of my head, I'll just have it in front of me, and then I'll know for sure. How about just the answer? Yeah, 28 minutes.
Okay. I think he looks fine at 28 minutes. He's not a great DFS player, but if I'm going to get 28 minutes, if anybody at 3,200 today, particularly in a matchup against the Wizards, I kind of share your interest. It's just kind of easy to want to go there. And if you get a little bit of extra money to pay up for the wealth of 10K plus guys today on DraftKings, I don't think that's the craziest situation either. So yeah, I don't disagree. I'm a little surprised that Buddy Hield is as cheap as he is, although 7,700 for Buddy Hield is or as low owned as he is, not as cheap as he is, because 7,700 does feel like a hell of a price tag for Buddy Hield, but I'll take him. He's going to shoot the ball, and he does have the small forward eligibility, which I think could build at least a little bit. Cool. Jordan, just for the record, it's just me now, right? Oh yeah, now never mind. You can hear me, correct? Just making sure I'm not losing everybody. All right, I'm taking this one over. Process show is moving to live before lock, fellas. So this is going to be it. We're doing it. I don't know where Nerd Ass Greg went, but Nerd Ass Greg needs to buy a new router. So let's just do this. I'm going to own this show. I'm going to minimize this window here so that I can make sure I know when Greg gets back, and we're going to take it over. Cool. The giant full screen of my stupid face, just what everybody wants for the next hour and 29 minutes. This should be fun. So we're walking our way through guards, and I am running crunches right now for both Fanduel and DraftKings just to make sure that I have the most up-to-date information for you guys, because I'm here for you. And it should be no surprise that DeLon Wright is the guy that's popping up the most on both Fanduel and DK. He showed up on so the same way, for those of you that aren't familiar, I have the process show, 6:30 a.m. Eastern time, Monday through Friday. I go through every single team, team by team, minute by minute through the entire rotation to get an idea of where we're going to be for the slate. And in this case, I have DeLon Wright as the top play on both sites. I ran what I normally call my power rankings, the same way that I run my crunches in the morning. I want to get a nice spread, but I want to see who climbs to the top. DeLon Wright showing up in 50% of my FanDuel crunches, which is obviously a monster number. 38% of my crunches on DraftKings. Those are the two biggest numbers by far for me right now. So I do want to reiterate, DeLon Wright is the first guy you're putting into cash games. And when people ask if things are good chalk or bad chalk, today it's good chalk. DeLon Wright is very much good chalk, even in GPPs. I was touching on Buddy Hield before when Greg had to unceremoniously leave this. And by the way, Jordan, did we figure out if he's coming back or not? If he shoots us a DM, who is it? Yeah, don't do that to me, man. You gotta vet that stuff with me. That's fine. I'm just kidding. I was gonna say you gotta vet that stuff for me when I'm doing it, because I will carry this show. I promise. Watch that number climb. Look at that number. Do you see the line chart of all the people here where it's getting better and better? We don't need Eric. We could run this stuff immediately the way that we're doing it. So guys that I have very little interest in that are picking up ownership, and I'm a little curious by it. I don't know what to do with RJ Hampton right now. 4,500, picking up way more ownership at the guard spot than I was ever expecting. And he sort of makes sense. Orlando has 9 bodies. Sindarius Thornwell, I guess, is a part of this for today. He's going to play a bunch of minutes, but is he still going to be the priority the same way that he was in the previous game? I don't know if that's the case or not. And that is at least mildly concerning to me, because I still think that it's going to be a little easier to go different directions than for his particular chalk. I do like guys from Orlando. I don't know if I like Hampton as the third most owned guard, which is what we have right now. It's my boy here. All right. I was ready to carry it. Welcome back. Welcome back.
Thank you.
You good?
Second here.
Were you like in the middle of a run?
I did. I just went for a run. Had my little lunch here. I had already a bunch of things. I figured we'd be waiting on news. And so I just jumped out of the shower here for you, and I'm ready to rock.
We just got news. Nerd Ass Greg got scratched tonight.
I was going to say he was questionable. He ended up being a late scratch. It's a bummer, but at least we got more heads up than Paul George gave us that one time.
Yeah, we're late swapping to you. Unfortunately, we're dropping from like a 9K guy to the flat minimum, but we'll be able to make it work.
Let's party. Oh my God. Literally just coming in hot here. My apologies. Here we go.
Basically, I'm just trying to save everything and keep the chat engaged, because I was running out of guards to talk about.
Let's do it.
Look, I do a solo show every day. I could talk all day if I need to. How you feeling about this slate?
Feel good now. I feel a little bit better than I did during the tip-off show. I think there's enough spots that we can be looking at on this slate where okay. So the Indiana news is your late swap special here at the moment. I think kind of waiting on some of those pieces earlier was. I mean, still having it, I think, is a big, huge piece of ammunition on a 9-gamer. It's hard to get different because of all the condensed chalk that we have. So, I mean, I think having what's happening right now?
Chat's just going wild. A lot of messages are coming in, and one of them is caught behind the spam filter that I can't say out loud. But it made me
goody.
laugh.
All right, let me pull that up. I want to partake in such things. This is great. Also, my glasses keep fogging up because I literally it's like 80 degrees out here in LA, and literally coming in hot. Let's party.
I love it. I love it. Cinco de Mayo, you got the margaritas flowing through your veins today.
I will later. I got to keep it together, and at least until the podcast. I think the podcast. Whoa.
Now we got our news. Goga Batadze, welcome back. Goga Batadze will play. Malcolm Brogdon out. Edmund Sumner out. Jeremy Lamb out. So Goga is back.
Okay.
That's big. That's real big.
That's gigantic.
All of that's really big, actually.
Yeah, well, I mean, I couldn't have timed this any more perfectly if I tried, because I knew I was going to get back and build on my lineups right about now. I was listening to you guys out on the run. So I'm feeling all right. So what are you doing with Goga? I mean, I didn't even expect that whatsoever. And he's going to have to play a lot of minutes at center, right?
I think he's going to play as many minutes as Goga Batadze can play at center, which
that's fair.
My guess is probably call it something like 26 seems about right to me.
Okay.
I still think we get like the normal 36 from Sabonis, and best I could tell, we still get, I would say we still get, 30 to 36 from O'Shea Brissett. But while I liked Brissett earlier today, I probably like him slightly less than I did.
Look at his price on DraftKings, though.
Oh, I liked him this morning when I thought that Goga wasn't playing and he was going to play 36 minutes.
Oh, okay.
But now if he's at 32, like any that I could possibly had was fully wrapped up in the fact that I thought that he just had to play as much as he could. Right. That is no longer the case. So even at 32 minutes, justifying that price tag is going to be a little bit more difficult.
Right.
I'm trying to figure out who I think is going to benefit even more. I've got a ton of minutes to fill here. Just looking at their rotations over the past couple of games, we haven't had Brogdon. The only major change here is going to be adding in Goga. He's been out since the 19th, where he played 23 minutes in the first sort of set of games, and then he ended up rolling that ankle because Turner had been out for a while. That was just after Turner's injury again. The most that we've seen Goga play this year, or at least in the last month, was 25. So I think I feel pretty good going to 26.
Me too.
And then Brissett over these past 2 games took the hit in minutes yesterday, but was at 40 the game before that. They shortened up that rotation a little bit. I think they could just start sliding everybody down. So, 28 minutes to Brissett. I think you still get something like 24 minutes to McBuckets. I don't think the impact here is going to be as big as I thought it was going to be. Does this open up Karis LeVert at all for you?
For sure. I mean, the usage has been there in such a meaningful way here of late that I think he definitely is your other main proponent along with Sabonis in terms of just raw points, raw production. O'Shea Brissett is pretty much unplayable for me at this point. I just plugged in, taking some minutes down for him. He's just way, way overpriced. On this slate specifically, not even a guy that I want to be taking any kind of like low tournament shots on, which sucks. He's been very nice to us of recent days, but rip O'Shea Brissett season. Pretty sure I'm going to Goga in a very meaningful way at 3,500 over on DraftKings right now. Curious where we're going to get that going, but man, he feels like one of my better pieces of value that I want to really be plugging in, especially because Russell Westbrook, point guard on DraftKings, Kevin Porter Jr., point guard on DraftKings, like all the guys that I was really planning on prioritizing sit in that. Oh, and obviously DeLon Wright, who you can play at shooting guard, but everybody at the guard positions all in on it. And now center, I mean, we have some of those really great ceiling guys in Jokic and Towns, and we want to still be able to get to a little bit of them there, but God, it's going to be hard not to jam Goga now.
TJ McConnell thoughts?
I never get him right. So he's probably the worst guy to ask me about. I think he's kind of like the luck box. Let's think of a golf analogy for it. He is Corey Connors. Like he is a Corey Connors play where like he makes hole-in-ones in every tournament and just gets there ridiculously in such weird ways. He had a hole-in-one at the Masters. The next week has another hole-in-one. I think Ben Raza is just like losing his mind because he never rosters this cat. Alex is all in on him every time, so at least the boss man loves him. But that's TJ McConnell for me. Your guess is as good as mine. Maybe he gets 15 steals today.
Speaking of friend of the program, Ben Raza, at 8 p.m. Eastern time. So a half hour after you're done this show, you have another show. You've got PGA Live Before Lock for this week. Yes, big event too. Wells Fargo.
It's a great one. Yeah, Quail Hollow is a really fun golf course, top heavy field, full 156 players. It's a really fun one to break down. It's one of my favorite tour venues. They had the 2017 PGA Championship there. Oh man, is it fun? And North Carolina guy. There you go. That's the connection, right?
Yeah. So not only that, but before Ben and I prepped our PGA betting video, he was like, hey, if you're looking at course history in 2017, this wasn't here. It was actually, and I was like, you don't have to tell me. They moved it to Wilmington. I knew that the event was here. I tried to go, but it rained.
And Tiger played in that.
Yeah. It was
the 2017
my previous to being at Awesemo, my office was in downtown Wilmington, and they were picking up everybody on buses to take to the golf course directly outside of my office, but it poured. So I just sat and watched like a line of people stand in the rain and just hope that the bus showed up. It was hilarious to me.
Great.
I wanted to go. That kind of ruined the situation for me, but maybe we'll get lucky and we can go again for the next time they do something in Quail Hollow, because it's obviously a fantastic course.
Oh, it's so good. Yeah, I didn't know you were Wilmington. That's specific. I knew you were in North Carolina, but I didn't know where at. I told you I dated somebody from Hillsboro once upon a time, and I've spent a ton of time everywhere. Asheville was one of my favorite places I've ever been to, with the manor out there and so many cool spots in North Carolina. Outer Banks, it's awesome.
I love being in North Carolina. Man, I'm running out of pieces. I guess Cassius Stanley's going to play a little bit.
Yeah.
Goga, TJ McConnell. I think I still like O'Shea Brissett like a little tiny bit, but nothing too crazy.
Okay.
I just $3,500 Goga is easy.
Yes. Goga is the easy piece. FanDuel 4,600 necessary whatsoever?
I don't think so.
I don't either.
I think it's okay. I think there's more down, like $3,500 Goga on DraftKings. He can play like sort of limited minutes and not absolutely murder you. Whereas at 4,600, you actually need him to get every piece of run that you think he's getting.
Agreed. It's in coming first game back too. But yeah, if he's good to go, they need somebody to clog up that middle for sure. I know you've been very adamant. You've been banging the Miles Turner drum since God knows when. But I think Goga's more doable than a 6'7" O'Shea Brissett, playing 4 and 5. Like this is going to be a guy that they want to get out there on the floor in a meaningful way.
So we got a couple super chats, and I made sure to stop. They popped in once the Indiana news came in, so I'm going to go through all of them now. Soul Dope says the biggest late scratch tonight is going to be Eric's eyebrow. What are your thoughts on shooting guard for Fanduel tonight and small forward to let's get this weird day capped off with a dub? Shooting guard and small forward. I'm pulling it up now. So for shooting guard on Fanduel, man, it's kind of very similar at the top, depending on what range you want to be in. I think there are 2 pay down options that look very similar. I think there are 2 like upper mid tier options that look pretty similar. And then there's a pay up option that I don't have a problem getting to. Armani Brooks and Terrence Davis, if you want to pay down, I don't know which direction to go. They're basically grading out identical. CJ McCollum and D'Angelo Russell are separated by $600. I see them as relatively similar today. And then if you want to go $9,100 to Bradley Beal, I'm not going to say anything to anybody for that one.
Yeah, that was a FanDuel specific question, correct?
It was.
Okay. My FanDuel is not reloading up here, so I'm having
an
issue myself here. I didn't have my FanDuel sheet up yet here. Somebody said that going from Craig to Eric is like getting the Clippers and Kawhi and George get ruled out, and there's nothing you can do about it. Adine with the fire super chats. He also made me do a year the other day for Gundacker. It didn't go well for me. I'm going to throw that out there. His signature introduction in the MLB streets, not my forte.
And then final super chat that I have not hit on yet. Arcathelza, Evan Fournier worth a flyer and a DK single entry. Revenge. To me, no.
Nope. Yeah. It's way too thin for me on this slate. Can he go out there and knock down, a zillion shots? No Jaylen Brown out there in 30 minutes. Sure. But it's not free. Like a couple of other, like him compared to DeLon Wright, or him compared to on DraftKings specifically, looking at some RJ Hampton, somebody that I'm very, very high on as well. I don't really see a reason that I would want to go there. Get different elsewhere in your single entry. Maybe not with a guy that's just been shooting so abysmally for the Celtics with Kemba Walker back there too.
Chris Middleton has officially been ruled out. Christian Wood has been officially ruled out. Daniel House out. DJ Augustine will play. Keep an eye on that one, though. He's been out for a while, and they don't have a choice but to activate him, I think, because maybe he sort of can play. But I would not totally be surprised if this was like a break in case of emergency thing and they go to 7.
I took Frank Jackson out of my player pool yesterday. I wasn't convinced. So I saw that we got news on the starting lineup there, and it made it much easier to jam in Diallo and not think about that, just seeing that he was starting. But seeing the word active next to somebody was kind of jarring there. Did it say active or is playing or will play?
What I saw is active, but let me see if I see anything else.
That wording always makes me thrown off a little bit, because Frank Jackson was active a game like a month ago, ended up not playing and got ruled out at like the end of the first quarter. And so
available.
Yeah, he's not going to play in my opinion. Like 3K, I would want some if I knew he was going to play on DraftKings. Like 3K is 3K, 22 minutes. Even that, like maybe, but I don't think you have to. But I want to stars and scrubs it, but I don't think we have to. And seeing active next to him, not very enthusiastic.
Yeah, and there's enough value out there on some of these teams that only have 8 guys tonight, plus the guys that also already exist for value. So I don't think it's much of an issue. Jordan, I was going this direction before, and then I slammed on the brakes and went a different direction. But we've got some free premium content for today. NBA player rankings are free. If you're watching this show, I assume you're looking for NBA rankings. So you're in luck. Head to Awesemo.com for them. But if you're playing any other sports, MLB Top Pitchers tool is free today. It is a giant asset when trying to figure out how often an individual pitcher will show up in an optimal lineup. That's kind of huge for letting you know which way you want to go with your bats, too. PGA top golfers. They'll be talking about that a little bit on the Live Before Lock show coming up at 8 p.m. tonight. But that PGA top golfers tool is free if you want to get an early start on the show. And then NHL player and stack rankings are also free if you want to slide on over to Jake Hari's section of Awesemo.com and get those player and stack rankings. It's all good stuff, but tons of free stuff going on for today. This would have been the time where we were sliding into the forward discussion. I have it pulled up right now. I'm curious to you. Where are you going? Where's the biggest piece of your forward exposure going so far today? Either site, feel free.
Okay, so on DraftKings is what I have pulled up. That'll kind of balance it out. I'm going to get to my Fanduel here secondly. Just kind of like reloading my crunch up here. I'm all caught up here at this point in time, but KJ Martin, really hard not to just kind of be in love with him there. I guess he's not over there at the small forward. Where am I looking at here? Terrence Davis, 24% there. Pat Connaughton starting to jump up for me. I don't know if I want to probably be going that direction. That seems a little wonky for me. Small forward on DraftKings is a very difficult position, I think. I think getting Pat Connaughton, having Middleton out there, he's 3,200. That becomes something that I think I'm going to get on top of the field at. I'm curious where that ownership's going to get to as we get closer to lock. Anthony Lamb was somebody that I was getting to earlier. I'm not going to go that direction, I think, anymore. Even having 8 guys there, I'm not sure that I want to be playing him in any kind of a meaningful way. But small forward, just so spread out. It's kind of a place where Joe Ingles really makes a lot of sense for me too. I was getting to quite a bit of him earlier. Buddy Hield as well. Now that we kind of know on the other side of it, we're going to have Goga in the middle there. I mean, I like having some of these Kings pieces other than just Wright be a part of my pool, other than just Bagley. And I think Buddy Hield gives me a little bit of leverage on both of those plays in lineups that I don't have either one or two of them.
So on DraftKings, this should come as no surprise. KJ Martin is the guy popping up the most, 3,900. They are super short-handed. He is already the chalk, and it completely jives with everything that I'm looking at. Marvin Bagley, also heavily owned, a direction that I'm going at the forward spot. But as you said, small forward, it starts to get a little bit bleak. 6% owned, or at least 6% the last run that I saw. Joe Ingles, I think that is definitely a spot that you can go, along with the fact that you could roster him at shooting guard, which is incredibly helpful. It makes Bradley Beal, to me, be a little bit more in play on the DraftKings side. I have no issue paying the $7,700 for Buddy Hield, but small forward is a really tough sell. It's really easy to find guys to like at the power forward spot. Small forward a little bit less interesting. That's not the case on FanDuel, though, because Kevin Porter's a small forward on FanDuel, and you kind of got to have him.
He's been the smash at small forward. I have him lock buttoned right now. I don't do that very often in life, but if he fails at 6,900, so be it. I don't really care. I'm only playing 20 lineups over there today. I was going to do a little extra prep for PGA, but that went out the window. I think I'll be ready to go already. I woke up and watched your strategy show again this morning, the process that's back to back. I didn't jump in the chat this time because that would have been after a good day yesterday. That would have been a little self-serving. So I didn't want to necessarily go that direction, but
should have. You should have. They would have loved it.
It's been enjoyable. Yeah, I enjoyed watching it last time. That was a good PGA prep for me at 4 a.m. out here, and fired it up again today. So I'm feeling pretty good about that. As you said, yeah, power forward on DraftKings, definitely a lot easier to look at with KJ Martin, with Marvin Bagley. Giannis, I know that there's a lot of people in YouTube chat talking about, do they trust Giannis or not? I think with Middleton out here, I think he's systems go. I'm not concerned. And I normally am the person who's on high alert for stuff like this, waiting to late swap, waiting to take advantage of that kind of news. I don't think we need to be that concerned about it. But Mo Wagner, the guy that I am well over top of the field on, I think because Mo Bamba is going to be jumping up in such a meaningful way. Another way of getting leverage there, I'm rated about the field on Bamba at center, but I like getting way over on Mo Wagner. Those minutes are so secure. They have Bradakis or Brizadakis. I can't even remember his name. He went to Michigan for a hot second. What?
Brazdakis.
Brazdakis. Thank you so much. I didn't have to say his name until this point in time. Said it on the Slate starter last night. It didn't come out right. Didn't come out right this time either, but he'll get some minutes as well. But Mo Wagner, definitely my priority.
He is quite highly ranked for me as well. The 4th best option at forward on DraftKings, the 4th best option at forward encompassing all of forward on FanDuel. He would be my number 3 power forward, though, behind Giannis and behind KJ Martin. And those 3 guys are like the 3 most popular forwards. We're leading ourselves. Everybody's being led to the exact same stuff today. We have a fairly cut and dry top core clear across the board. So figuring out ways to be slightly different is going to be even more important than usual. Who are some of the guys you see at forward today that are being a little bit underrepresented in your opinion?
I don't want to say it out loud because then I'm like kind of married to it, but
Beetlejuice.
Yeah. I think Maurice Harkless is somebody that I was going to be over top of the field at 3,700 over on FanDuel. Looking at that position,
thought.
Go ahead.
Harrison Barnes and Chimezie Metu are both out again for the Kings. So
then I'm really going to do it.
There you go.
Oh, God. I was kind of anticipating that. I was kind of thinking there was no way that they were going to end up playing the later we got into the day. But Mo Harkless, I've been like 15x the field on so far today. In my 20 lineups had him in just over half of them. Again, it's small forward's just a disgusting position. And if you want to get different with somebody who's guaranteed some kind of minutes upside between him and Terrence Davis. You can play Terrence Davis over on Draftkings. And I feel a lot better about playing him than I do about playing Harkless over there. But now I think I'm still going to get to a little bit of Harkless.
I advocated for him earlier today. I advocated for him in the exact same way that you just did, with disgust in my voice and apprehension as the general feeling that I was exuding. So you and I are in the same boat there.
Yeah, well, that's good to know. Misery loves company.
Absolutely. Super chat from Sunflower. DK question: Augustine, Jeffries, or Bradley, all minimum priced? I would lean Bradley.
Yeah.
I'm not really comfortable with any of it.
I feel okay about Avery Bradley. I know that the 0.6 fantasy points per minute on the entire year is really brutal in Miami. He was really brutal. But he's expressed some shooting upside in spots that it just kind of randomly spikes. And he can do it in like low minutes as well. He's probably the guy who's the most likely to not exceed 28, 29 minutes on this team out of everybody. Outside of DJ Augustine, of course. So DJ Augustine, we'll just kind of remove him. But Avery Bradley, I'm a little bit over the field on it. And I think it's the effect of it being a 3K player on DraftKings that has nobody else out there. And, you know, if you were to knock down a couple threes, run into some stocks, you could have the ability to be rostering Giannis and Jokic and Westbrook kind of together in the same lineups.
Another super chat from Zach Anderson. While discussing forwards, how do you feel about Tobias Harris on DraftKings? I like the price tag. 6,800 is nice. Wouldn't call him a priority. I think he's under-owned at 10%, though.
Yeah, I have 15%. I feel better about him than I do about 90% of the small forward position, but there's an obvious downside to the minutes. He's kind of in that 6,800 ballpark. We have a guy like Chetty who's coming in higher owned, and I would rather pay up a little bit more to go to him for sure. But I think Terrence Davis, I'm going down even a little bit further at the position and spending up elsewhere.
Yeah, he's kind of in a no man's land. We have a lot more guys in like the 5s or like up in the 7s and 8s. And we get a super chat from Jacob that is just the emoji of me with the mustache. So
that's really good. I enjoy that. Claps.
You spent $2 on that, Jacob. Congratulations. You know what you could have done with that $2? You could have used that to deposit at No House Advantage, the presenting sponsor of this show. And you would have got a bonus on it. If you use the promo code Awesemo and you are a new subscriber to No House Advantage, you can get a $50 first match deposit bonus by making that deposit with that promo code. Why would you not want to take some free moolah? If I told you guys that you could enter a contest today for $50 and you would win $50 guaranteed, every single person here would do that if they could. This is the same sort of situation. You put $50 in, they give you $50. And even better than that, we give you everything you need to succeed at No House Advantage for free. It doesn't cost you anything at all. Optimal lineups, check. No House Advantage projections for all of their player props, check. With the odds of them hitting. If you want to know what the most likely under is, if you really want to cheer against stuff, You can do that. You can find out that it's, let's see, I don't know what the first one's going to be. Ooh, Russell Westbrook under assists is relatively highly ranked there. Good luck with that one, boss man. They might take you out at the stake for getting that one wrong. But either way, doesn't jive with Alex's projections right now. Or you could take the best over, which currently is Michael Porter Jr. points plus assists by double, evidently. Either way, all of this stuff is free on the website. So go to No House Advantage right now. Use that promo code Awesemo to get that $50 instant match deposit bonus. If you don't want to just look at the projections, you don't have to. We will actually provide you with the optimal lineups to roster. You don't even have to do any work. You get free money for no effort whatsoever. And it's not out of the realm of possibility that when you enter a contest, there's a little bit of overlay, which makes it even better. They're running a big one tonight. 10K slam dunk, 5K up top to first, but they're locking at 7:30. So surprise, not that you didn't already know it, but we're sticking around for an extra half hour from 7 o'clock to 7:30. We'll touch on any news that comes in, but we are talking No House Advantage. We're talking player props. It's 68% full. Their big contest for tonight. So you want to make sure you get over there. 155 spots remain. They do have other contests. You can get into a double up called the pump fake. There's still some spots left there. The clutch shot triple up is just about full. So you don't have too many spots here for the NBA. They've got MLB contests. They've got PGA contests as well. Let's talk centers. And I can tell you I just ran my crunch, and the guy that I'm getting to the most on DraftKings is one Goga Batadze.
Yep. He's in – I have him in all but – so I have 20 lineups on both here right now, and then a couple that I put in the 20. And I am – yeah, it's disgusting. I have 80% of Goga right now. Is that right? Oh, no.
That's more than I would have, but I get it.
I'm going to take him down here right now. It's just one of those things where 3,500 for a dude with that kind of upside. He's been good too. Like there's no question for he's a lot younger than I anticipated him being when I had started digging him up a couple of weeks ago, but 1.15 fantasy points per minute on the year. It's hard to find 3,500 going to be getting around 24 to 26 minutes minimum. I feel like, or that's kind of exactly the ballpark I'm putting him in. That's a huge projection on a guy that really kind of eats up the center position, and pairing him with Mo Bamba, just kind of like, I think the optimal way for me to kind of go with two center lineups today.
I have no issue with going heavy here. He showed up in a monstrous amount of my lineups. Now, did we get an ownership update yet to see where he's popping up? Because I think that's a key piece to how high you would want to go here.
Because he's still under 1%. No, I just refreshed it. It's going to be way, 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 way more than that.
Yes, I will bet most of everything I will bet literally everything that I have that he's not 0.1% owned. Is there anybody else that stands out at center? Because we obviously knew that Mo Bamba was fixing to be pretty heavy chalk as of 20 minutes ago, and now he will still be chalk. But does Goga, how much does Goga eat into that? Does Goga and Mo Bamba just become the preferred combo? Because we still have Joel Embiid out there. We still have Nikola Jokic out there. We still have Karl Anthony Towns out there. It's a lot of center talent today.
Yeah, I think what helps is that like a guy like Kelly Olynyk and Mo Wagner, I can play at power forwards. I can play them at forward positions. So I'm actually on Cruncher, just clicking over there, making them power forwards so they don't show up in any of my center lineups. I think that makes me feel a lot better about the upside of my lineups than having them in the center spots. I'm lighter on I was expecting Brogdon was going to be in for the most part. And so Sabonis, I was taking a heavy stance against. And now I'm just at about the field and I'm trying to figure out what to do. Because if it was in Sacramento, we wouldn't have to have this discussion. If he wasn't coming off back-to-back 70 burgers, would he have even 15% ownership at 10-6? No, he wouldn't. But I feel like that might be a great spot to be going over the field on. But center specifically, yeah, I really like Robert Williams as well. We didn't even talk about him. Karl Anthony Towns, we know the kind of upside he has. This center position is starting to feel a lot like a make or break, but because of the elevated floor that you get with the ceiling of Mo Bamba, who just got done eviscerating the slate with 46 against Detroit, now going up against Boston. Robert Williams, not the biggest center. Time Lord is not a big center by any means. That should be a fun battle between those two. But I don't know. I kind of want to just play a little bit of both of them and not go like absolutely nuts and take more of an aggressive stand on my guys like Mo Wagner, who I feel really good about, KJ Martin, who rightfully has insane ownership. Like those are the power forwards I really want to be heavy on.
I'm a little. I wish that I could get the team, the Awesemo team, on the show right now. I'm a little curious. So we on the website, we are currently projecting Goga Bitadze for 14 minutes. Now, I don't think that that's outlandish. I have no concept of his health. I mean, we're talking about a guy that has been out. How many straight games is this? He's missed 7 straight games, been out since the 19th with an ankle injury. He's a big dude. Like, I could see him being limited. It's not as if he is some giant minutes performer prior to this. And now that I'm thinking about it, I don't think that he's going to get the same amount of minutes that I had originally anticipated. If we take it back to that chunk of time where Miles Turner was out, Sabonis was getting those 36 minutes. Goga Bitadze was averaging 14 minutes a game from April 9th through April 16th, 5 games. They didn't go to him. I don't know if they would want to, but my assumption now is that they are not going to be playing alongside of each other with any sort of regularity. I mean, they were splitting the 48 minutes at center for all of these games. So that leads me to believe that we are not going to see Goga. And I think that we have, at this point in time, overhyped him.
I have a column where I get their starts. So it directly gets their 2 starts. That's where I came up with the 24 minutes number. So he has 2 starts this season, 23 and 25 minutes. That's why I came up with the number 24 there. Oh man, that's interesting. Okay. I'm
taking him all the way to, I'm taking him all the way to 14 minutes. Maybe they play alongside of each other for 2 minutes just because of how shorthanded they are, but I'm giving him the backup center run and only the backup center run.
Okay. Well, it's not like they have to be going crazy and pushing him out there. Rashawn Holmes, again, not the biggest dude. I mean, that's a Sabonis matchup. Not that Sabonis could guard you or me, but I feel pretty good about, oh God. Okay. Well, I feel bad now because I jumped into the middle of this. I kind of overhyped and then for that situation. I mean, do we have that Indiana starting lineup?
Not that I'm aware of. And look, I thought so too. I immediately just went to go get the center spot, and that does not appear to be the historical precedent for Indiana. I don't know if that would change given the rest of the personnel that is available. I'm not entirely sure that it would change. So, look, you're getting it live on the stream, guys. We're walking that one back. At least I think that we have to.
Okay, I'm going to get to 5. I'm going to get him. I'm going to get him in one lineup. I'm going to put him in a lineup because I don't know. I would feel really, really disgusting if he were to somehow get to 26 minutes. But I think that probably also, if we're looking at it, if there is that kind of a concern from the boss man, from everybody behind the scenes in terms of his minutes, because I'm just looking at his last 2 starts, specifically 23, 25 minutes in recent games here. His last game out, that was what it was, 23.
By the way, if he's starting, then yes, everything that we said before goes right back to what we should be doing.
Yeah. So I think there's enough other plays at center where maybe don't go nuts on that now too. Mo Bamba, Robert Williams project out phenomenally well. I mean, just value wise, they're outrageous. So if you don't want to be taking a 3,500 shot on him, more than happy to say, let's not do that as a community and move forward and talk about somebody else. Yeah. I like it.
Look, that's the benefit of this show. I like the fact that we can pivot. We can recognize information changing and dive back into it. So I wanted to go all the way back to we got 4T Hill with the super chat and said, how do you feel about Karis LeVert on FanDuel? I mean, it's hard to have a problem with him. That much I could tell you. He's going to take every shot that he wants to take today.
He's the best play at shooting guard. He's the best play at shooting guard at 8,400 over on FanDuel.
I don't really know what else I could say to that. Yeah.
Do you want me to break that one down a little further? I can. I mean, 1.16 fantasy points per minute. Sees a little bit of a spike here with Malcolm Brogdon off. Has been phenomenal. Starting to take up more usage as the games go on. He's going to get uninhibited run. Going to play high 30s minutes. Like, sign me up for all of it.
I thought I saw. Oh yeah, we got a lot more super chats. So
okay,
let me dive into all of these. We got 4 more, I believe. James Hood, please help me get off this awful take. I'm fading DeLon Wright on FanDuel GPP. He's going to be so high owned and is really dependent on defensive stats. I mean, if you're telling me that you're playing one lineup and you're fading DeLon Wright in a FanDuel GPP, like I don't have a problem with it. I assume the rest of your lineup is incredibly chalky, and that is a move that you're making, and that's fine. Like you could make a case for literally everybody. It's not the best day in the world. Like he's sort of a good play no matter what. But if we just want to like walk through the logistics of that, if you don't want to pay 5,200 there, like I think you could pretty easily switch that up and use Cole Anthony or TJ McConnell as proxies in that point range, or pay up for Drew and Russ if that's your lineup. And there are plenty of options to pay down at other positions now.
Yeah. Here's what it comes down to. The chalk is the chalk for a reason today. It is not your normal day of chalk. Just like yesterday was not your normal day of chalk. You really need to find a way to be different in like one or two spots. Like that's what it is. Like go ahead and play some right. And you know, if you're doing single entry, if you're playing one lineup, this is a much more difficult question because I think we're accustomed to being guys who play multiple lineups. I'm generally playing 150, 250 lineups over on DraftKings a night, not today, but that's generally what I'm doing on a typical day. And so I can kind of get exposure and cast my net out different directions and really find overweight approaches on like a low owned guy. Like, you know, I was over on Isaac Okoro on FanDuel yesterday as a result of trying to find any kind of a pivot I could off of Hamidou Diallo at 4K. And that was kind of where I landed on in some lineups, and that worked out well. But I think today, you know, there's enough places at other positions that aren't right, that aren't Drew Holiday, who now jumps up just gigantically with no Middleton out there as well. I'm curious to hear, we haven't talked about Drew or Giannis in their how they benefit with Middleton off the floor. What are you doing with Drew at the FanDuel point guard position?
So right now he is the second ranked point guard for me behind DeLon Wright. DeLon Wright very clearly at the top, but given the usage bump that Drew gets and given that $7,800 price tag, I am bumping him up.
I just don't see any way that I think I'm going to have like 5 point guards on FanDuel today. Like Ben Simmons is my guy that I don't want to roster, but I'm going to click the name of, unfortunately. TJ McConnell, because I don't know what else to do with him besides play him a little bit. Russell Westbrook, I want to be over the field on every day forever. And then Wright and Holiday. I just think there's other positions like small forward. There are so many different ways to get unique with that second piece that isn't Kevin Porter. I think shooting guard, getting different with a piece that isn't Karis LeVert. I think making your stand in those places makes a lot more sense to me than trying to get really different and saying, because there's no direct pivot off of 5,200 DeLon Wright at 50, like on FanDuel today. There's just nobody that remotely projects the way that he does.
Nope, not even close. He's the best play on the slate. So you just got to be aware of what's in the rest of your lineup. You can make a case for it. Like I could create a lineup that doesn't have him and create a lineup that does, and they could be relatively close in fantasy projection, but you got to make sure you're making up for your ownership elsewhere. Opposite Texo, DraftKings question: Westbrook and Terrence Davis or Kevin Porter Jr. and Buddy Hield?
I like both sides of it a lot. What's the rest of your lineup look like? Like, I think Hield's going to be under-owned comparatively to the first set of pieces. So maybe that second one.
Yeah.
I mean, anything with Wright in it, I want to be on the front end of Wright. But if you're talking about like getting different and finding a way to do so, let me find that super chat. What were the two again?
Westbrook and Terrence Davis, Kevin Porter Jr. and Buddy Hield. I think it's got to be Westbrook and Davis for me.
I mean, I just love both sides of it. Play all four. How about that?
To me, it comes down to this. Like, you kind of just need to get Terrence Davis right, whereas you kind of got to get Porter and Hield right on the other side, because Westbrook's going to be right by default.
Fact. Love it.
FanDuel, Bradley or Connaughton?
Connaughton.
Yeah. I'm not super fond of either, but it would be Connaughton for me.
Yeah, I'm much more interested on both of those as DraftKings pieces, 3,200 and 3K respectively, on a site where that, like, I think you're basically giving up a spot. Like, there's a lot of opportunity cost by going down. Like, you need 30 plus from Bradley or Connaughton, I think, in that example.
Yeah. FanDuel question again from Soul Dope: Clarkson and Bamba or Russell and Time Lord? So I'm assuming that's D'Angelo Russell.
Oh, then the first one. My God. Yeah.
I'll go to the second one. I want no part of Jordan Clarkson.
Okay. If you had to play
actively
Russell
against him.
Okay, so Clarkson or Russell, you're going to go Russell. I mean, for me, I don't really have either. So it was more of just like, what's my preference there? Like, you don't have any Clarkson on FanDuel?
I would be very under the field because of his ownership. I think he's the most overowned shooting guard.
That's saying something. I mean, he has not been the Jordan Clarkson we expected to have with Donovan out. I will say that much.
No, I mean, you need every bit of 20 shots and any limited minutes. If this game becomes a blowout either direction, he's not going to see that extra run coming off the bench. So I'm not a fan.
Okay.
And it's way too expensive on DraftKings, but that's neither here nor there. By the way, 7 minutes to go until lock, everybody. If you don't have your lineups in, you better hustle. And then don't worry, stick around. We're going to be here until 7:30, talking a little no house advantage when we're done, making sure we didn't see any other news come in. Wizards, Westbrook, Neto, Beal, Anthony Gill, and Alex Len. Gill starting for Rui is what here? He is flat minimum on FanDuel, flat minimum on DraftKings. I'm not super interested, but he's certainly in play. Like,
I'm going to get to him.
What do you think? He plays 18 minutes.
This is a fun slate to drop out of the sky and jump into the middle of. Let me tell you, Anthony Gill. Oh God.
Look, I don't expect him to close. I would expect Bertans to be on the floor. So if Anthony Gill plays 18 minutes, I think Bertans plays the other 30 at the 4. The way that Anthony Gill closes this game is if it's a blowout in either direction. So he can get those minutes and he can be relevant for 3K. I don't expect him to get the 4th rotation he needs unless the game goes squirrely. If you're betting on this game going squirrely, make sure you're accounting for that in the rest of that lineup construction if you're going to Anthony Gill.
I think those are all fair points.
Bingo. That's the best that I can do right there.
Yeah.
5 more minutes. Isaac Katoa. Lineups are locked. Only one thing left to do. Pre-game blunts on me. Spark it. Good luck tonight, everybody. See y'all tomorrow. Yeehaw.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it seems like you definitely had that pre-game blunt before you wrote that super chat, buddy, but I appreciate it nonetheless. Good luck tonight, man. Have a good one. Do we have any questions coming into Slack? I'm sure we do because we are coming down the pike now. DeLon Wright or Kevin Porter? We're reading the same question.
Read it at the same time. It's like, don't send me that. Just don't do that to me. We have a lot of pressing issues. Whether or not to play those two is not one of them. Play both. Live the rest of your life.
Yeah. If I have to answer, it's DeLon Wright.
Same.
If not just for the fact that he's easier to roster, he's in point guard and shooting guard spots. So,
yep.
But that's not really fun.
Harkless or Connaughton, DK Cash, definitely Connaughton for me. Harkless, I'm doing as a tournament dealio. That's not close for me.
Harkless isn't going to get any ownership. No. Cavs starting lineup: Sexton, Okoro, Osman, Love, and Allen. So nothing wild there. How much right is too much today in a FanDuel GPP?
It's 101% because you cheated.
Yeah. If there's not a person, like, I would never criticize someone that had him in everything today.
Same.
He's as good a chalk as you're going to get. I have him at a 50% chance of going for 38 fantasy points. 50-50 chance he goes north of 38.
So dumb.
If you want to just say 40 is the cutoff where you'll obviously be happy, it's like a 48% chance or something like that. So yeah, I'd be willing to dive in fully. The only thing that would slow me down from going the whole shebang is just some of the other guys that are there at point guard, Drew Holiday, Russ. I think that Cole Anthony could be a guy that could oddly break the slate if he just plays today. But if they don't play him if he plays the 30 plus minutes that you would expect a starter to get, I think he's going to go underrepresented. I think I mean, I guess I could just look at the ownership instead of saying I think. What's the relationship in ownership between TJ McConnell and Cole Anthony?
I think the relationship is like are we prioritizing RJ Hampton or Cole Anthony? Because I feel like they are negatively correlated. I like the Hampton side of it, starting to see increased minutes. I know they ended up closing the end of that game, but I think he still gets up to like 28-30 minutes still, under 5K. I think he's just very good at basketball. That's, as good of analysis as I have for you. I think he might actually be good at basketball.
Oh, yeah. I'm a fan of RJ Hampton. By the way, very different plays on DraftKings and FanDuel. RJ Hampton is $100 cheaper than Cole Anthony on FanDuel today at $5,700. So Cole Anthony is at 13%, TJ McConnell at 21%, RJ Hampton is at 2.4%. You can make a very good case that RJ, I agree with what you said. I think that Cole Anthony is a good pivot if someone was trying to go from DeLon Wright to TJ McConnell. But I also think that if someone's trying to go to Cole Anthony and you have a relatively chalky lineup, going to RJ Hampton at that ownership is oddly appealing because he might just play 8 more minutes than Cole Anthony today.
Yeah, that's a fact. Also a fact. I think the Hampton side for me, maybe I should, nothing like changing up stuff 1 minute before lock. Here we go. Give me a little bit more Hampton. I wouldn't be okay to not have a little bit more Anthony now here. 20 lineups. That's an easy fix. Here we go.
Yeah.
Done.
I mean, look, they have limited bodies today. They've only got 8. So I do think that we see Cole Anthony at least see a little bit more run. And if he does, I mean, we're talking about a guy that's 1.05 FanDuel points per minute over the last 30 days. If he gets normal starter run, I think that's underrepresented. But at the same time, I don't mind hedging onto RJ Hampton. To me, he's a lottery ticket.
All right. Yeah. Let's ride then. If Goga goes off, I'm going to lose my mind today.
He could. I was very surprised to see that they split those minutes. That was just something that I did not remember from the beginning of April. But it doesn't matter now because we are locked, everybody, which means it is time to talk a little no house advantage. Now, I haven't asked for a like in a while, but I think considering the way that this show went, before everybody gets out of here, we started this show with Nerd Ass Greg. His internet was just like, this nerd's got to beat it. He goes, I think I'm flying solo. We get Eric coming in out of the rafters, fresh off of a run, diving in. So we saved this show, guys. We put a Band-Aid on it. We put the best Band-Aid possible. We got stitches and staples. We closed that wound up great. I don't know what my analogy is any longer, but if you guys could hit that like button, that would be great.
It's good enough. It's good enough. You can't ask for much. Low bar. We're exceeding.
Yeah, absolutely. No, not a low bar. It is a powerful duo on this lovely slate. We got a ton of super chats. We still have 2,300 people in here. Yeah, smash that like button. Why not?
Eric is Mariano Rivera. I will take that. DFSR. Oh, let's go.
I would be so upset if I were Mariano Rivera.
Yeah, I would too. It's insulting.
I know,
he's done things with his life. I sit behind a computer and punch in numbers and try to help the fine fellows out here make some dollars. But for the most part, Eric is the underappreciated MVP. Oh my God, just keep build up the self-esteem. Also, if you wanted to know what they were talking about with the cat thing, I accidentally. So some dude. This was the story from the tip-off. Some dude DM'd, or he said in YouTube chat first, he said, you should get micro-threading because he thought my eyebrows were really bushy. And I was like, okay, whatever. And then the next day he's like, hey, I was being serious. You should go to a barber and do this micro-threading thing. I'm like, that's stupid or whatever. He goes, well, then go get a trimmer or do something. I was like, this is block, done, whatever. And I started thinking about it and boom.
Hold on.
Accidentally. I slit my eyebrow. So that's why I've been wearing glasses for the last week and a half. And it only was because I almost won 3K total yesterday that I felt comfortable telling this story and really just deflating my ego just right off the bat.
I have had that exact same situation happen to me with a chunk taken out of the eyebrow, but that happened because I got drunk at my high school prom and passed out on a couch and they shaved a chunk of my eyebrow off. So that happened to me. That was a legitimate real thing. I also had a shave slip the morning of my wedding and took a chunk out of my chin. You can see it in pictures if you know you're looking for it.
My fiance, I cannot tell you the amount of murder that she would impose upon me. I would be so dead. Oh man.
If it were like 5%,
was she cool? Did she laugh about it?
Not something she would have noticed actively.
Okay.
I'll send you a picture so you can see it, because it isn't the full gouge. I caught it in the middle of it all. If it were 20% worse, I would have had to fully shave, and I probably would have let her come out to my mustache, which would have been great and probably not a great way to start a marriage.
Well, there'd be better ways, but yeah, for the most part, you'd save it by making it funny. The videographer would lighten it up, and you'd look back fondly on it.
Absolutely. What we should do now is talk a little bit about No House Advantage. I have the optimal props pulled up right now. Everything that we've got from the Awesemo team gets put into the No House Advantage props. And I guess I should explain this a little bit. If you guys want to go to No House Advantage and sign up using the promo code Awesemo, get yourself a $50 instant match deposit bonus if you sign up. So like if you put in 40, you can get 40. If you put in 50, you get 50. If you put in 100, you get 50. It doesn't go any higher than 50. Go do that, because we're offering all the free goods and we're going to talk about it for a half hour. That's only for new subscribers, by the way. Can't give it to everybody. Apologies. We're not really worried about fantasy points here. We're worried about player props. So you don't have to sweat like, oh, this guy I needed 50. What's the value? It's different here. You're ranking props. So your favorite prop's going to be worth 10 points. Your second favorite, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, working your way all the way down. But we have applied the Awesemo.com basketball projections to all of the props and assigned odds of how likely they are to go under or over. So you could look at every single prop that exists and use that information to build out your lineup. Or we could do you one better. You could just go to the optimal lineups page and just grab a lineup that tickles your fancy. They'll be there in order in the most optimal to, I don't want to say least optimal, but least optimal of everything that is shown. I mean, I don't know how far down we go. It appears that we create like, I don't know how many, 20 pages worth of 10 or something like that. So there's a lot to choose from. You don't have to just immediately grab the first one and hold hands with everybody. There's a lot out there if you want it. Or you can just do it on your own if you'd like, if that's the direction you want to go. But right now, they're having a $10,000 slam dunk contest. They're giving away $5,000 to first and 72% full. 344 of 480 entries right now. You guys can get in right now and potentially see a little bit of overlay. So that makes the free money even better for you. I highly recommend you guys go check that out. We're going to touch on some of the props as we go. Soul Dope flying in with another super chat. Norm Powell out. Damian Lillard is available. What does Norm Powell being out do for you?
Absolutely nothing for the most part. I don't think I have enough exposure. So if I was making 150, I think I would give a little bit of a bump to Dame and CJ McCollum. Maybe on FanDuel taking a look at that. Maybe that'll change a little something for me, but I'm not going to go to like a minimum salary Jones. I think I feel better about Harkless, as stupid as that might sound. I feel better about some of these mid-range small forwards. I feel a lot better about Buddy Hield and some of these other guys. Joe Ingles we talked about. I'd rather get there. Don't really think you have to be prioritizing anybody. Are you maybe feeling that way? Maybe Carmelo Anthony, but I don't think he's going to jump either.
I think someone is going to end up popping up at least a little bit. We don't really have any reference points for this team. They just so rarely miss games. Like Powell has played the entire month and just at 35 minutes a game. So figuring out who is going to soak up that time. Is it Derek Jones Jr.? Is it Nas Little? Do they go to more Melo and slide Robert Covington down a bit? Does Anthony Simons just come into some sort of like 3-guard rotation if they want to?
Interesting one.
I doubt that, but
I didn't get much. I didn't get enough of a meaningful change to want to prioritize it whatsoever. I think there's enough bodies there that it's going to kind of get spread out amongst Anthony. Maybe Little would get a little bit of run, but he's not going to be viable. Same thing, Damian Jones. I'm assuming he gets the start. Is that kind of what we're anticipating here now? He'd start at the 3 alongside Covington, Nurkic, and then McCollum, Lillard, obviously. Like, is that kind of what you're thinking?
I mean, that going back to that sort of normal rotation where Derek Jones just slides into the same spot he had forever makes the most sense. I think we probably just see a split, maybe 16 minutes for Derek Jones, maybe 16 minutes for Nas Little. That'll soak up a lot of it. You see maybe Carmelo pick up 4 more minutes, maybe. Does he become viable to you? I have no idea what his price is. He was not at all on the 4,700 on Fanduel, 3,900 on DraftKings. Derek Jones and Nas Little both a flat minimum.
Oh God.
$3,900 Melo against Cleveland feels like something you got to look at, right?
That's exactly what I'm looking at. I mean, if you got 26 minutes out of him, 0.9 fantasy point per minute guy is kind of what I've always had in my head for it. Yeah, 0.92 on the season. Could he spike it upside? Yeah. The problem is it's so hard to see like Covington. It took a long time for him to really start to show an upside again. That price has come crashing down because you're getting McCollum and Lillard next to each other, both with crazy usage. It's so hard to anticipate any guy like Carmelo. Like he would have to have that rebound rate come up, but now you have Nurkic and Kanter splitting minutes there, which makes that more difficult. Like you're basically saying, Melo, you still have to go out and score 18 with 4 threes on DraftKings and then pull up a couple other things to be viable on this slate. I'm not going to do it.
DeLon Wright, Buddy Hield, Mo Harkless, Marvin Bagley, Rashawn Holmes starting lineup for the Sacramento Kings.
How could you be Mo Harkless?
I have a hard time singing the song properly anymore, which is not ideal.
I'm sorry. I just can't.
It's just not ideal.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I'm giving Melo an extra minute. I think Covington's probably good for 34 at this point. I don't think that we see too much out of Anthony Simons that we wouldn't have normally seen. Even if you give Derek Jones Jr. and Nas Little 20 minutes apiece, they aren't interesting. So I think more than anything, it just sort of stabilizes Dame and CJ since Norm Powell is not going to be out there shooting at all.
I agree with that. The Simons thing is really interesting that you brought up, though. Like the 3-guard set, which we saw a little bit against Brooklyn 3 games ago, going to popcornmachine.net. You've got Indiana, where he got up to 24. He just went nuts from 3 that game, like 9 out of 10 from 3. I just kind of want to remove that game from the entire pool, but that's kind of what you're hoping for. We saw 30 minutes against the Spurs and Charlotte. Spurs, let me see, it would have been Derek White, DeJounte Murray, DeMar DeRozan. Who else? I doubt Patty Mills shared the court in that spot. I mean, I could see high 20s minutes possibly for Simons. 3,100. I think you could do worse than trying to spike an upside with Simons. That's the one guy that you said that really kind of like caught my attention more so than even, as crazy as that is, even more than Carmelo Anthony.
I'm looking up right now. I can't imagine they've been on the floor a ton together. Let me look at it. Never? That can't be right.
McCollum, Lillard, and Simons have never shared the floor together?
It said no lineups fit on cleaning the glass.
Okay. And then when did McCollum, sorry guys, but we're doing this all on the fly here. McCollum came back. So McCollum has been back for a meaningful amount of time. He had that 2-month hiatus basically from the 16th of January till March 16th. He's been back that whole time. We still saw Simons. Why did Simons get up to 30 minutes in a couple of those games? The 16th and 18th of April. What were
Dame
those
was
rotations? Dame was out. Okay, there it is. There it was. Yeah. All right, that's a big piece there. So I'm going to basically make him. I had him at 24. Maybe go to
they played 17 minutes together.
That's not great. That's not enjoyable.
That was below the cleaning the glass position or possession threshold.
A lot of work to basically say I have nobody changing for me.
I have no real changes here. I like Dame and CJ slightly more than I did before. And I think there's probably at least a little tiny bit of additional value in Dame and CJ props because at No House Advantage, the lines are static. When they're set in the morning, they don't move. So if anything improves or changes, if guys get ruled out, who would be a really good, like Giannis and Drew Holiday, their props are going to be lower because Chris Middleton was not expected to be out this morning. And we could touch on some of that stuff by just looking at our No House Advantage projections page. We could take a look and see what are some of the best props that you can bet on today? And by bet on, I mean use no house advantage.
So I'm building a lineup in that 25 right now. I think that CJ McCollum 3-pointers made. So he's at 2.5. I think that it's going to be the Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum show. If you give a bump to anybody, I know it seems like we want to try to find some sort of value from that, but I think it definitely funnels a little bit. It's an extra couple shots, I think, for McCollum more than it is anything else. So I think 3-pointers made, he was already a really good bet at 4. That is what we had him projected for. I think getting to him at 89%, which, maybe up to 92%, becomes one of the best plays on the board. I'm going to make him one of my higher confidence slot plays now.
Points and assists 12.5. That can't be right. 12.5. Sorry, I'm looking at a prop and something looks. No, that is okay. So like some of these props are preposterous, and I need to just point out how preposterous they are. I just assumed that I was about to tell Jordan, hey, can you get in somebody's ear to go ahead and refresh some of these tables, because I don't think that it's updated. That ain't true. Do you want to know why I know that?
Because you're looking at it and it's not changing whatsoever, and you pulled it up on the app and it's the same thing.
So here's the number one prop we have for the over today. Are you ready?
Oh yeah, I know where you're going with this.
Okay, yeah. Michael Porter Jr.'s points plus assist. The line is set at 12.5. Awesemo.com has him projected for 23.85 with 97% chance of hitting the over. I just assumed that we pulled that in wrong, and that was like just his points number, or somehow like only rebounds were populating or something along those lines. No, not the case whatsoever. All of Michael Porter Jr.'s props look incredible. Here's something I want to ask you, because I don't totally know what the answer would be. You can only pick one of Michael Porter Jr.'s props. And there, in theory, is some game theory to this, because obviously I think that it should be the number 10 prop. You don't want to take the thing that you think is the best and make it lower to try to be different from somebody else. That's probably going to be a fool's errand. But do you think that there are better or worse options here, since they're all basically the same? Like, for example, do you think most people are going to just take points, and you have the opportunity to like take points and rebounds and try to get that sliver of leverage if it's wrong? Or would you just take the highest ranked one no matter what?
I'm going to the latter. I'm going to the highest one no matter what. So 12.5. The only thing that I would do maybe differently, Michael Porter Jr. isn't necessarily your go-to assist guy on the Denver Nuggets. You've got a Jokic sitting around 40%, Campazzo around 20% assist rate. You can basically write off assists as like an accident for him. If there was anything I did, maybe hoping that he lands directly on 12 points, like just has an off day, and then that points plus assists doesn't come to fruition, and just taking the over on 11.5 points. But outside of that, there's like no way around it. These numbers are inaccurate, and it's very nice of NHA to do it for us, because we're on a show and I'm trying to build a lineup and support them and do all the different things that you guys should be doing too, because it's free money, free way to go build your bankroll. But looking at that prop specifically, it's just such a freebie.
I'm with you. It threw me off so much that I had to go try to figure out if it was wrong. Another one that's popping up here at the top, just not even in the same ballpark now that we've had the news from Malcolm Brogdon, but Karis LeVert assists. The line is set at 3.5. We have him projected for 6. That is 94% likely to go over. So in theory, Michael Porter Jr., one of his main props that are all in like the 96 to 97% range should be your 10-pointer. Karis LeVert's assist should likely be your 9-pointer. And then we start working our way into Kevin Porter Jr., CJ McCollum, 3-pointers made, Seth Curry, 0.3 rebounds and assists, which truly makes me scared, but I like what I see. Do you see any other props on that list that stand out to you that you like even maybe more so than the odds are showing? Or if you have one that you like a lot less, I'm curious there too.
So Justin Holiday is going to get some increased run. He was somebody that I targeted on the tip-off when we were talking about it earlier. Somebody whose opportunity could spike a little bit more. Points plus assists, 9.5. He's going to be out there. He played up into the 30s again, got more of the run we're accustomed to seeing from him. Now when you take Brogdon and Sumner and everybody else off the floor, that becomes an absolute smash for me, 9.5. Not somebody that I'm getting to in DFS really, but I think on NHA, this is a perfect opportunity to be capitalizing on something like that.
Cole Anthony heading to the locker room. He ran into Mo Bamba, and they're going to have to check him out.
Well, Mo Bamba's a wall, so that's not ideal.
He's a pretty narrow wall. RJ Hampton season, though.
I'm sorry. I was on the other side of it, but I got to 2 more shares of Cole Anthony as a result. So I think you owe me $20 is what it comes down to.
That's fair. I could handle that.
No, we're okay. We're okay. Yeah.
Do you know what my favorite part of No House Advantage is?
What is your favorite part of No House Advantage, Josh?
So if I'm being honest, and I apologize to the 1,000 people that are still here that think otherwise, but I'm kind of a garbage person in that I have no issue whatsoever cheering against people. And taking unders is incredibly satisfying to me. Rooting for things to not happen, rooting for anti-success, that is up my alley. And we also have, it's not just overs that we can sort in this table and take. We can take unders as well. And I, for one, have a ton of interest in taking unders and rooting against the success of other players. In particular, one Kevin Huerter, who has a points plus rebounds plus assist line of 22.5 that we are currently projecting at 14.2. That has a 99% chance of going under. Would you like to join me cheering against Kevin Huerter tonight?
Nothing. And it's not against red-haired people. That would never be what we were going for. He's a lovely human being. Him and Dwayne Wade are buddies, I'm pretty sure, because it was the nice jersey swap moment that they had. But the fact of the matter is Kevin Huerter's banged up. His shoulder is screwed up. The minutes have started trending down. Only played 20 minutes last time out. Lou Williams is in town playing his 15 minutes a game, cutting into some of that production. They're fully healthy now. They're getting themselves back in a position where they don't even need to have Kevin Huerter out there for his 32, 35 minutes anymore. And again, his shoulder's jacked up. So I am right there with you taking that under. It is pretty it's pretty straightforward that it is a hammered under.
Yeah, I agree. And just for reference sake, I actually have Kevin Huerter projected for 15.7 points plus rebounds plus assists. That would still be an overwhelmingly incredible prop to take, just given what we have and what we have available. Like he's just not playing as many minutes. I would smash it too. And I like it even more. I need to let everybody know we should add a third column that is just like max odds. So you can sort it from best to worst, whether it's over or under. And then it would just, it would highlight in green zigzag pattern instead of having to pick one or the other.
It's a great idea, actually, because then you're going back and forth and comparing, and you're like Michael Porter Jr. As good as that prop is, technically Kevin Huerter is even better. So points plus rebounds plus assists. Also, everybody, these are free every single day. Like there is no reason that you shouldn't be in there every single day, taking a look at some of those plays. It also tells you if you don't have an Awesemo Plus package, which you definitely should at this point in time, it's a way to kind of get a look behind the wall at what is going on, who Alex and Steve Buzzard and some of the guys behind the scenes are really valuing on that slate and who they're not. That can be very useful as well.
Think about it like this. There are 344 entries in their slam dunk contests right now out of 480. That is looking very likely like it's going to overlay. That will lock in 9 minutes. Obviously, a large chunk of those people don't know what Awesemo.com is. They don't play. They don't use our information. There are people entering this contest that are probably just going to be picking these props by hand. And for you to be able to come to Awesemo.com, sort those over odds, even if you just want to look at it like that and see Michael Porter Jr., 12.5 points, we haven't projected for basically 24, like twice as many as the line. Just knowing that information and knowing that you can slot in what amounts to free squares is going to dramatically help you out in trying to build a no house advantage bankroll. I cannot guarantee victories in anything. But if you're running a 100-yard dash, you're starting 20 yards ahead of everybody by just having that information.
There's no better. It's not even a pitch. This is not a pitch. This is us basically telling you how to go utilize the tools that we have for free and how to be able to take advantage of your opposition, because there are so many people still playing on this. Out of the 300 something entries, half of them, probably more than half, that probably aren't watching this, that don't have access to this or don't know that this exists. And so you want to get in there and you want to be making informed decisions every single step of the way. And that's what these projections do for you for free.
Corey Balmer had a super chat a little bit ago. Kevin Porter Jr., Joe Val, and DeLon Wright, or Terrence Davis, Drew Holiday, Karis LeVert. It's a DraftKings question. I think it has to be the Porter Jr. Wright side of that equation.
Yep, agreed. I mean, those are both two phenomenal pieces. I don't hate J-Val tonight. I don't hate him. I've always liked targeting J-Val. It's always a question of minutes with him, and Jaren Jackson being out helps. Like, there's got to be some kind of a boost that you give in any kind of a small, meaningful way. They have enough bodies there where they've shown a propensity to want to cap him at 30 no matter what. But if he goes out there and puts his foot down, he's going to do it no matter what. And he's always got unexpressed upside. But there's so many other better plays that I think he kind of falls by the wayside. But don't hate it at all. Coming in under 10% on DK.
Blazers lineup is Lillard, McCollum, Jones Jr., Covington, and Nurkic. So we were spot on for that one. No changes that we have to make there. Yep. PJ Dozier announced without a timetable for a return. Michael Malone says he will not be back. He doesn't anticipate him back anytime soon. God, they're taking a beating.
It's unfortunate too. Look at yesterday too, we were Greg and I were doing the tip off and I put in a bunch of Clippers bets while we were on the show because they had the LeBron James is going to be out for the next 2 games. They're looking like they're going to slide into the play-in tournament. So I like investing in the Clippers right now. The Denver could not run worse at this point in time.
No, they could not. We also got another super chat from Mark Athelza. Jones Jr., Anthony Lamb, or Avery Bradley in a DK single entry. You got to pick one.
I'd rather go. Got to be Bradley. Would you consider Jones at this point?
I don't think so. He's just. You know what? I'm going to go Lamb because I think Lamb has the highest upside in that if that game gets out of hand, I think he plays like 26 minutes.
Okay. Oh, Cole Anthony has returned to Wednesday's game. How about that?
There we go.
Does that change your mood at all? Can we finish this last 5 minutes out strong now?
I mean, it doesn't hurt. That's for sure.
Good.
Good. It wasn't ideal. So I'm looking through. I'm in the process of building a no house advantage lineup. I'm going to try to get this in the next 5 minutes, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that. So we're getting the Karis LeVert assist prop in.
If you want to take a look at that, I can go through my lineup here because I'm all done. I'm all magnificent and ready to rock for this. So Michael Porter Jr. on the top end. Yeah, go ahead and plug a couple. But Michael Porter Jr., I am taking that freebie. That 12.5 looks really, really good. I actually have Kevin Huerter going second, 22.5. The shoulder is not there. The minutes are not there. I am taking that under in the 9-point slot. McCollum, it's going to be a lot of overs now. So CJ McCollum, this is where I'm starting to get a tiny bit different in case one of these hits on the top end and some of these other confidence ones on the bottom end might fall out. This is kind of my strategy with it, but I think CJ McCollum sees enough of a bump in usage without Norman Powell there. Norman Powell's actually been pretty flat in terms of usage compared to going to Toronto. I think you put it perfectly one morning when I was listening to you where you said that he went from playing alongside 2 guys who had a little bit of usage and like to hog the ball to 2 guys who like to hog a lot of the ball. And so now that's kind of the Powell effect. CJ McCollum over 2.5 3-pointers. That's my 8 number. Then I go Karis LeVert at the 7 hole, going 3.5 assists, taking that over. I think that's a lock. Steph Curry, 12.5 points plus rebounds plus assists in this Houston game, taking the over of that. He's been playing some low 30s minutes. I really like going to Seth Curry in this spot. Kelly Olynyk, really sticks out as well. 1.5 3-pointers made. He's going to be playing a lot of minutes. He's going to have a lot of opportunities there. No Christian Wood out on the floor. He's been pretty darn good. Been attempting quite a few more threes than I was expecting. And so I think at the 5 confidence slot, that's another way that I'm getting just a little bit different from the field, I think. Kevin Porter Jr. taking that over on 6.5 assists. Feel good about that. Justin Holiday taking the over on his 3-pointers on the confidence there. The 3 confidence point slot. Under of Chris Paul, 9.5 assists. And then the last one I'll leave off because then I don't give out my whole lineup.
Okay. I'm loading the mine in now. I don't know if I'm going to get it in or not. I still have 4 more to go. It's going to be close. A lot of what we've already talked about is on there. Ooh, I think I might have to take this one. If it loses, I'll be okay with it. I think taking an Anthony Edwards under points, rebounds, and assists.
Love it.
I'm grabbing a couple of the unders to really just stick it to everybody.
People like betting overs. I think that's a fact. I mean, look at my middle section. I mean, if it weren't for Michael Porter Jr. just really sticking out, I think the CJ McCollum one becomes a little bit sneakier. Taking the over on 3-pointers made. I've been taking the under on a lot of 3-pointers made. They ended up taking Giannis's under off the board a week ago. I was taking the under of 1.5 pretty much every single day out, and it was smashing. And then he hits 4 threes on Sunday when he's not even on the main slate. So that was nice. Really enjoyed that. So he can do that all he wants on not main slates. How about if you're going to go for another under, let me sell you on one guy that I think not many people will be taking unders on, but Nikola Jokic under of 8.5 assists. If you're going to like a 1 or a 2 confidence slot, New York is really going to muddy this game up. I do like Jokic. It wouldn't surprise me if he got up there, but Facundo Campazzo has a 20% assist rate on the court next to him, cuts into it a little bit more than Jamal Murray did. I think that maybe the under on 8.5 would be nice.
Well, I'm excited to be in this contest for tonight. 380 of 480. That's the amount of entries we have right now. So that is monstrous overlay. And they are giving out $5K at the top of the heap. What more could you ask for? That's a big time chunk of change there. And I'm feeling pretty good about my props. I'm coming for you too. Let's see who finishes off at the top. We have 30 seconds to go. If you are trying to get into that contest at no house advantage, you're running out of time. Click faster. I hope you signed up using that promo code Awesemo, which can get you a $50 instant match deposit bonus. Man, I could play 2 entries here. I wish that I had time to put in the second one. I certainly don't. There's too much going on, man. There's too much crazy news. Swapping out co-hosts with me today. It's been nuts. But I'm going to go and we're going to slowly but surely get out of here because we are now officially locked. So thank you so much to No House Advantage for being the presenting sponsor of this show. You go get a drink or a water or a snack or whatever you need because you're coming back in 30 minutes. PGA Live before lock. Ben Raza, Eric Lindquist, breaking down the Wells Fargo. That's all I've got. Good luck, everybody.